It's time for MacBreak Weekly. We've got a lot to talk about. The EU says, Apple, we'd like $2 billion right now. Apple says, hold on just a minute. Apple had new hardware to announce this week. In fact, just yesterday, they announced the new MacBook Airs. We'll give you a preview of what's new and what's not so new. We'll also talk a little bit about the Vision Pro. Yeah, of course. I tried not to, but I couldn't help it. In fact, we've got some great Vision Pro tips. It's all coming up next on MacBreak Weekly.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is MacBreak Weekly, episode 911, recorded Tuesday, March 5th, 2024. The Deep CPU. MacBreak Weekly is brought to you by Ecamm, the leading live streaming and video production studio built for Mac. Whether you're a beginner or an expert, Ecamm is here to elevate your video production. From streaming and recording to podcasting and presenting, Ecamm Live is your all-in-one video tool, perfect for simplifying your workflow. Ecamm Live includes support for multiple camera and screen sharing, plus the live camera switcher lets you direct your show in real time. We use Ecamm to do iOS today. In fact, frankly, if they'd had Ecamm when we started Twit, I'd probably use it for everything. Stand out from the crowd with high-quality video, add logos, titles, lower thirds, and graphics. Share your screen, drop in video clips, bring on interview guests, use a green screen, and so much more. It is a power tool. Join the thousands of worldwide entrepreneurs, marketing professionals, podcasters, educators, musicians, and other Mac users who rely on Ecamm Live daily. Get 1 month free when you subscribe to any of Ecamm's plans. Visit ecamm.com/twit and use the promo code TWIT at checkout. ecamm.com/twit. It's time for MacBreak Weekly, the show we get together on Super Tuesday to celebrate the right to vote in this great land of ours and talk about the Apple Computer Company. Actually, not just computers anymore. Jason Snell's here, sixcolors.com. Hello,
Don't
Jason.
blame me. I voted for the M3 MacBook Air.
Well, I think you might win. We'll see. Also here, Andy Yanako from GBH in Boston. Hello, Andrew.
You know, it's, they have us vote between, or vote, air quotes, between the MacBook Air and the MacBook Pro. It's really the same puppet CPU holding up both of them. So unless you want to keep contributing to this fascist system.
I'm glad that finally you've called out the deep CPU, because that's really the problem here, isn't it?
You know, it's all big money going into these things.
Yes.
That's what's running these
Mostly mine.
these machines.
Yeah. Have you ever smelled the deep sea? PU.
And this pun fest continues with Alex Lindsay from officehours.global. Hello, Alex.
Yeah, my problem is that I really used to feel like we could choose a GPU or a CPU, and now they're all the same party.
All melded together.
They're all the same. They're all connected to each other. But you
get the NPU for free. People over
the Apple Silicon Industrial Complex.
Those poor Windows users on the right, they've been waiting for NPUs all this time. They're just now getting them. They've been held back in their machine learning.
Well, the puppet masters, they're only listening to the extremes of the consumer market now.
That's right.
I mean, the moderates like me who just want an affordable laptop that is suitable for the next 3 or 4 years and well built. I feel as though we're being ignored, and that's what's driving this buying decision.
So Mark Gurman was right. He said last Sunday, don't expect an event. Apple's going to come out with this stuff with memos, basically. And the first memo came out. There is the new MacBook Airs are here. The M3 MacBook Airs. Yeah. How exciting.
Memo. Take a memo, Dottie. Take a memo. This is Tim. Take a memo. The new MacBook Airs, M3. They look exactly like the old ones. Yeah. It's good. They finally, the M3, remember, debuted with the iMac and the low-end MacBook Pro a few months ago. In late 2023. And of course, the MacBook Air is the most popular Mac, so probably needed to come there sooner rather than later. And so it is now, I guess, orders now shipping Friday, I think. And, it is the same exterior but there are some changes on the inside that are nice, including the M3 processor having more capability in terms of, we could talk about Apple has a whole AI section because AI is now a checkbox in product announcements.
But all Apple Silicon,
we do it.
All Apple Silicon has had ML coprocessor.
Has had neural engine, but now it's in the press release. I think for a lot of, our audience and similar kind of power users, one of the big stories here is that Apple has enabled, for the first time in Apple Silicon era, the ability for a MacBook Air to turn its internal display off and instead drive two external displays, which you used to not be able to do. And I know that seems super esoteric, but I cannot tell you how many people I've heard from who always had a setup with two monitors and a MacBook Air who haven't been able to do it. And now you'll be able to do it. And in fact, it's a firmware update for that M3 MacBook Pro as well. It will be able to do this too. I don't know why it couldn't do it at launch. That's weird, but that's a big, that's taking one of the big criticisms of the MacBook Air in the Apple Silicon era and knocking it out.
Also, it's not as though, we'll let you put up like a 1080p monitor via HD. No, it's like dual, is it 5K or 6K?
One of them can be 6K and the other one can be 5K.
Yeah. I mean, that's immense.
It's okay. Yeah, two studio displays. It'll drive two studio displays.
But you have to be in clamshell mode. I mean, I think you said that, but I just want to underline it. You have to be in clamshell mode.
You've used up all of your, also used the only two Thunderbolts that you have. And so
that's
to run those monitors.
Well, you could daisy chain, right? Can't you?
Can you?
Sure.
Yeah, and
there's enough throughput
on
that Thunderbolt port to do.
Yeah, and if you're using a Thunderbolt adapter, you can still drive displays that are connected to the Thunderbolt adapter.
Or on the back of the display or wherever you've got it. But this is, it's big. It's not everything, right? Because you can't run it with the lid open. But still, this is one of those things. And for the MacBook Pro too, people are like, well, how is it a Pro laptop if it doesn't drive the second external display? Here you go.
When does that firmware update come out?
I'm not sure. It's unclear to me on whether that's something that's enabled by the next version of Mac OS or if there will be a specific firmware update for the MacBook Pro or not.
It wasn't in any of the official releases. I think 9to5 and a couple others asked them directly and got responses saying yes, in the future there'll be a firmware update.
Isn't that interesting? So it had the capability. It was just a software switch they had.
Why it was not on? Why would you ship that base MacBook Pro with that limitation and then turn it on later? That's so weird. But I don't know, maybe somebody inside Apple was like, I think we can do it, right? It's
that might be
Apollo 13.
It might be a hack.
I think I know how to do this.
Give me some chewing gum and a pair of tweezers. I'm getting in there to fix it.
Yeah. I mean, there have been times in the past, usually not quite this emphatic, where somebody inside Apple did a hack just to make their lives better, and then propagated to other people who saw them working that way, and it basically got into the pipeline as a mainstream feature. I'm not sure that something as big as this happened that way, but I bet that the most influential beta testers and voices for Apple products are inside Apple themselves. When people are complaining about, hey, why does my M1 Mac and my cubicle do this? This is something that gets a lot of attention pretty quickly.
Also, Wi-Fi 6E, that's new, right?
Yeah.
Yep. So a little bit faster Wi-Fi. Now, Wi-Fi 7 just got ratified, but don't pay no attention to that. We've got 6E. Are there any?
Say that I think that we're starting to get to a point where the capability of the laptop is starting to run past the capability of the Air is starting to run past the utility of it. I can just say that a lot of us, with only two, the limiting factor here is really those two USBs. And I know that people say, we can put them on a bridge, but for a lot of us, putting video on a bridge and audio or audio, all those things are the things that we try to avoid like the plague. And so as a result, daisy chaining doesn't always work. And so as you start to have this really high performance computer, you're having you have that M3, it's really powerful, and it's still limited by these two jacks. And I know that's the primary, to me, that's the primary difference between a MacBook Pro and a Mac Air.
And
two Thunderbolts.
The RAM limitation, right? It's only 24 gigs still. That's it.
I think you can do a lot with 24. You can do a lot with 24 gigs. But again, I think this is for someone who wants to have their, I think that if you're casually using it, but I think we get questions in office hours a lot of, hey, should I get this as my video production thing? And flatly, we're like, no.
Oh, interesting.
Like this is for if you want to do light video or light audio, and you want to do, if you want to do those kinds of things, if you mostly just want to have a great pleasurable experience to do your general computing, I think it's a great laptop. But as soon as if you want to do something that is remotely professional, the extra, the max chips, the extra headroom on the RAM, the extra USB, they make a huge difference. So these are not, I think people keep on saying that these are kind of blending between, and to me, the Mac Air is a very different product than the Pro.
Yeah.
Except for the one that's identical to it, but I mean, it does have more ports.
But it doesn't have those ports.
Yeah. Right. But that is a good point. I mean, right now, in terms of the amount of power that you need for 80% of everybody who's out there, a MacBook Air is absolutely going to cover you. And the ability to, again, plug it into a dock, even if you decide to put in a dock, and have like a workstation like setup that you simply plug in and take out. That was one of the final factors. So I think that Apple's going to have to take another look at the MacBook Pro line to do things that are going to really differentiate. Like I know that the unified memory concept it's a subtle discussion about what application RAM means inside Apple Silicon, but still, this is where you start to now look once again at like the base level MacBook Pro and think 8 gigabytes is still kind of chintzy as like entry level machine on a Pro machine. Apple seems to have some trouble now, like trying to convince me to spend $1,600 for a base level MacBook Pro versus like an $1,100 M3 MacBook Air.
You can get now the M2 MacBook Air for $999, but again, that's with 8 gigs of RAM, and I really, is it 128 gigs of storage, or have they at least beefed that up? Let me look. I'm on the Apple Store page. I'm on the base model, $999, which is, that's a special price point, under $1,000.
Exactly.
256 gigs of storage and 8 gigs of RAM. Yeah. Do we not recommend 8 gigs of RAM, or do we?
My recommendation is always max out the RAM to the extent that you can afford. Like if you know what your budget is, and you're balancing out how much extra money do I put in above the base level, I would much rather spend more money on extra RAM, because that's one of the things that makes this thing future proof. Like it's the difference between 6 or 7 years from now, this MacBook Air being usable and being perfectly usable, because you can't expand the storage or the RAM on these things, but at least I can plug in a Thunderbolt external device, and at least I can get a terabyte or 2 terabytes off of that. Whereas if you have a problem that's with lack of RAM, you're just stuck.
Apple took a fair bit of mockery for saying 8 gigs of RAM on a MacBook is the equivalent of 16 on a PC. Is that true, Jason?
And I wouldn't say that, and I think they do deserve some degree of mockery for that. But it's marketing. Marketing is going to be what it's going to be. I think the truth is that a lot of computer nerds will turn their nose up at 8 gigs of RAM, and for good reason. But at the same time, I think that a person who's buying the base model is probably price constrained in a way that it's not going to be a bad experience. It's not going to be the best experience, but it's not going to be a terrible experience. I think that they need to get off of 8 at some point as the base here. But right now, for the MacBook Pro, I actually agree. In fact, you would be better off, unless you're, like Alex was saying, somebody who really wants the ports and the card reader and things like that. I think you'd be better off spending the money that you would spend on the base MacBook Pro M3 on a MacBook Air M3 upgraded with 16 gigs of RAM and 512 storage. You can actually get that for $100 less than the base MacBook Pro. But I think you can get by. Again, could our audience get by with 8? Maybe they would push it, but I think a lot of people, low price is the thing, and they can survive. Yeah. Apple Silicon Macs run okay, unless you're running like 15 different apps or whatever. Like it's just not. There's a little level of snobbery, and it's based in reality, but I also think that it overstates it.
And I got a stack of Mac Minis here that are all 8 gigs. One of them 16, and most of them are 8 gig RAM, and I never feel it. Like now, I have to admit that they're somewhat single mission, but they're running apps, they're running Keynote, they're running occasionally Photoshop, they're running other things like that, and I really don't. I don't feel it at all. So now I wouldn't do the heavy work that I do on my studio on those computers. So I think that it is, so I've kind of separated that out. But I think for the kind of things that you should be doing on the Air, in my opinion, 8 gigs is you're probably not going to feel it for quite some time, and when you start saying, I need 16 gigs of RAM, I would start saying that you should really be thinking about a MacBook Pro, like it is, you should just step up but I think that for most of what the Air is good for, I think for a variety of reasons, I think I would probably, and I think that the M2 right now is still the most, as much as most people who buy an Air need, so I think that it's a pretty good deal right now too. And remember, you can start with 8 gigs and that's the $999, but of course you can upgrade those past that. So I believe you can get at least to 16, I think. So,
yeah, I mean that it's one of the questions that was
24.
much. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize you were still around.
No, just saying 20, no, I was 24 gigs. Is what we can take on.
One of the things that was really on my mind when I was making my choice, MacBook Air, MacBook Pro, was slightly larger battery in the MacBook Pro. Also, MacBook Air does not have a fan, so it can get thermally throttled theoretically faster than a MacBook Pro can. However, again, for the sort of things I'm using this machine for, the only time that I even hear the fans on my MacBook Pro are when I'm doing nothing but transcoding, where I'm not probably going to be really involved in doing anything really important anyway. And the battery life is going to be, I think, more affected by improvements in the OS, improvements in the battery tuning. So the next step, I think, for Apple is going to be that this isn't a complaint, but an observation that the difference in airness between the MacBook Air and the MacBook Pro used to be phenomenal. The MacBook Air used to feel like nothing in your hand compared to carrying around a MacBook Pro. Now they're roughly they roughly take up the same space inside your bag. Yes, it's thinner at one edge, but it's basically the same thickness at the other edge. It's lighter, but not that much lighter. I think that the next big transformation is going to make me something that has the styling of an iPad, that is shockingly thin and light. That is at least at the $1,000 price point. Give me something that if I really do want something that is super transportable, that feels like I'm not even necessarily aware that I've got a laptop in my bag, that's going to be an option for me. I don't know if inside Apple, they feel as though they don't want to crowd the decision towards an iPad Pro, because if you do want super light, if you do want super thin, if you do want super compact, maybe what you want is an iPad with a keyboard cover. But I think that given that the MacBook Air design physically has not really changed since the beginning, not that much anyway, I think if this is so overdue for a style makeover.
Should point out that Alex, that you probably are right, because in the picture in the Apple memo, they're running both monitors with 2 cables. Although it's a little bit of a mystery, because doesn't appear to be a cable going into the left monitor. But I'm going to presume that monitor goes somewhere. That cable goes somewhere, probably down under the table and back up behind the monitor.
Also, I should point out that user is using a Magic Mouse. So how realistic is this?
A good point.
Anyway?
A good point. Yeah. But I think Apple is clearly, they don't want to promote docks and dongles. I mean, that's ugly.
Well, and I think that's the problem is that you also don't want to, if you're trying to do, like for us, a lot of us are doing higher end, on the road, higher end Zoom connections and higher end those types of things. And you really want that, whatever your camera and your audio device are going to be, you want them to go directly into the computer. And then you want another one for Ethernet.
Right.
And then you're down to one. It might be your keyboard. So that eats up everything that's there, and the keyboard can absolutely go through a dock, and technically the Ethernet can go through the dock as well. So that's fine, but your AV should not, and that's where we get into real pinches when it comes to needing to do a professional use case.
Yeah, my instinct when I was at my mom's house was to make sure that the audio and the video are directly plugged into the Mac. But then I had a Mac Pro, so I had extra ports.
Exactly.
But also again, for the MacBook Air user, this is perfectly fine. And also the convenience of having the convenience of having one Thunderbolt cable that I plug into this laptop, and all of a sudden I have every convenience of a desktop. Exactly right.
Yeah.
I'm not going to travel with a dock unless it's like a little pocket dock just to have USB ports and stuff like that. But yeah, I think that if you can host both of those external displays through a dock, I think that would be super, super wonderful, because you don't want to have to eat both of them up with two monitors.
And of course, Otherworld Computing is having a 14-port Thunderbolt dock sale right now. What a surprise!
OWDC.
So I can't believe I'm in this position to sort of somewhat defend the honor of the MacBook Air, but it's Apple's top-selling computer, and I think they did redesign it with the M2. I know it's not an enormous redesign, but I think that if you asked Apple, they'd say that design's going to go for a while. I agree with Andy, and we may talk about this more later, that Apple needs to do some experimentation. The form of the laptop, Apple seems to have thought they defined it in 2011 or something, and since then it's all pretty much been that. I would love them to try to do something thinner or lighter or convertible, but for this one, like, this is the most popular laptop Apple sells for a reason. Price is part of it, and also what people want out of their computer. I will say, I use a MacBook Air. I didn't buy a MacBook Pro, and I am more than comfortable with the power in it. And so I just want to put that out there, that, like, I think I would not push somebody to a MacBook Pro unless they had some very specific needs in terms of ports or in terms of that beautiful display. But and we didn't even mention the 15-inch MacBook Air, which I should also mention. The 15-inch MacBook Air got revised as well. And in a very funny thing, because they came so late to the 15-inch M2, which came out last summer, it's gone because they're only selling the M2 and the 13-inch variety. So that 15-inch M2 MacBook Air had an extremely, like, almost record-setting small, short life. But the 15-inch is there for people who want it. The big screens, the beautiful screens on the Pro are a reason to get the Pro, and the ports are there too. But at the same time, like, the MacBook, I would be more than happy to recommend an M2 or an M3 MacBook Air to almost everyone, knowing that, like, the people not included in almost include a lot of our viewers, a lot of our listeners, and everybody Alex knows. But I think that, you know, even for me, the only thing that I get sad about when I'm on the MacBook Air is if I'm trying to do like a Whisper AI transcript and it only runs at like 4x instead of 8x. That's about it.
Well, I mean, I think my sensitivity to it specifically is that my wife bought a MacBook Air, the M2, the last one. And because she wanted to keep it light, didn't want to spend a lot of money, and she wanted it to work. And then, of course, she decided that this is much better than the other computer she has for Zoom, and attached it. And I'm still figuring out all the tech to fit it into those two ports stably. Just going, if this was a MacBook Pro,
I would get that $99 for that Otherworld Computing 14-port. It's Thunderbolt 3, 14-port. Yeah. That'd probably be perfect for her. Yeah. And then it's plugged into the wall. It's got a real power jack. So you sit down, you plug in that one cable Andy was talking about.
One cable.
And you light up.
And that's where we're going. It's just been one of those things that it's like, oh, now I'm buying another.
You don't like the dongle life. I understand.
Yeah.
You're the snob that we were talking about earlier, as am I.
No,
I bought a Pro. I had the M2 MacBook Air, and I went. In fact, I had both. I bought the 13. Then I thought I wanted the 15. Then I realized I liked the 13. Then the 14-inch Pro came out, and I said, that's perfect. And so,
well, and hers is a lot faster than the 2020 Intel 14.
Oh God, yes. Apple keeps, Apple will tell you the differences in speeds, and at least they're honest. They say, well, it's a 13% faster M3 MacBook Air than a M2 MacBook Air, but it is twice as fast as the i7 MacBook Air. I mean, it's a big difference. It's huge.
And I'm just not out enough to make it worth it. So I sit here and just buy more Mac Minis. I'm like, I'll buy them.
Okay, so that raises, and Demos is asking in the chat. Now, Mark Gurman said there's many products coming out this month, but there will not be an event. They will all be sent out with a memo. Memo 1 is out, but I suspect we're going to see more, right? Will we see, this is the real question, M3 Mac, or rather, Mac Mini. Will we see a Mini?
That's not in Mark Gurman's rumor list, and I think that they might have announced it now. I think that we're going to see an M3 iPad Pro, but I don't know about Mac Mini.
So next memo will be iPads, right?
I think so.
And that's it?
Yeah, I think so. I think that the Mac Mini, and the Mac Mini has in the past been announced with the iPad. So it's not that it's impossible that would happen. Because
Really?
it's happened
That's
in the past.
so weird.
But I think
Yeah.
that it was a couple of years ago. No, maybe when I say a couple of years, it might have been 4 or 5 years ago that I remember it. Anyway, so.
And we do
but
have June will be WWDC. That might be another time.
That's what I was going to say. I think that the desktops are getting grouped together.
Yes.
So the desktops will all come out at the same time. So you'll have the Mac Mini, you'll have the Studio, you'll have the Pro, will all come out at that time.
That makes
so I
sense.
think that's so I think that those are going to get grouped together, and I think that that's kind of where things are kind of settling in to that process.
It's kind
which
of
is
funny.
Nice that they'll actually have an event.
To think of the Mini as a desktop, but of course it is a desktop, but
Yeah, no, absolutely.
it feels like just like a little
Many of them can
plastic
fit on
towel.
one desktop, as I have proven. I've got 6 of them over
Yes.
here, so.
My Mac Studio is under my desktop.
You've got
in a
mini
little thing.
hinge.
I love the
exactly.
Studio. I forgot about the Studio. That's right. They got to update that as well as the Pro.
Bless it.
So maybe in June, you think, or we're not going to wait till the end of the
Or
year.
fall. It
You
could be
think?
fall. Yeah,
I think-
could be.
Yeah, remember they had they had a couple of big refreshes of the mini line in the fall events. So
Okay.
and also the priority is to make sure that I think I don't know if the cutoffs for bulk purchases for institutions have changed for fall like usage, but traditionally. Bulk purchases for like school systems, for universities, for people who like need to basically be an institutional purchase for fall tends to end at around May, which is why you tend to find like more student friendly hardware being updated May or earlier, so that if an institution is buying 500 of them or stocking 1,000 for a certain operation, they can place that order and be ready and be ready for that time. And that's why the Pro stuff tends to wait for the people who are going to be on tenterhooks for it, people are going to appreciate the developers, people like Alex. I it almost sounds as though like a derogatory term for like a subculture, people like Alex. But of course we're talking about people who are like at the top of the performance curve and who have like the fact that something has 2 ports instead of 4 is an immense pressure point for a lot of people.
You're
And
talking about
that's why
the 1%, Andy. That's what we call ourselves. The 1%ers have MacBook Pros. Actually, the 1%ers probably have Mac
MacBook Pro in a
Pros.
very long time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's.
I love my Mac.
do
You know what? I spent, it was $5,000 or something because it had 4 terabytes. It was an M3. I maxed out RAM. It was very expensive. But my thinking was, this is it for a long time. I love the screen. It is a better screen than the Air. It's really a nice system. And I figured like, this is my pal for the next 5 years. So I think it was worth it. If you advertise it out.
For me, I try to make a decision about what I actually need. So I buy,
and I don't work that
a
way.
lot of my Mac Minis. When I say, I got a bunch of Mac Minis, these are all like almost all but one of them is the cheapest Mac Mini you can buy. That so it's like
With 8 gigs of
$599, $599.
Yeah.
So like I can have 3 of those instead of an Air. My Mac Studio is a Max, not an Ultra, because I thought I'd buy the Mac Pro, and then then it took a lot longer to come out than I expected. My next computer is probably a Mac Pro because I need all the I/O. Like I need all of that. I need to be able to put cards in it. I need to be able to put there's things that I'm doing that need those things. So now I'm saving up for that. And again, not buying a laptop because I'm buying more desktop stuff. Just because I spend most of my time, I'm working from home, so I spend most of my time at home. I don't really need. When I go out, I take my iPad. I take my laptop as the thing to do the things that I can't do on my iPad, which is very small.
I feel like I'm almost going the other way. I set up a second workspace in my house, and I got a studio display, a keyboard, a trackpad, and a Thunderbolt dock. And it's a single cable plug-in for my MacBook Air. And I am essentially duplicating what I have here with my Mac Studio, but with the Air driving it. Lid
it's
closed,
fine.
and
you don't
it's
notice a
great.
difference, do you?
I love it, and in fact, I love my Mac Studio so much that I imagine I'll replace it with another Mac Studio, but I have given it the thought that I might not need to, honestly.
Yeah, me
because
too.
the
I have an
laptop
M1
experience is
Max
so
Mac
good.
Studio, and I don't feel like it's slow. In fact, the one thing I have, the only benchmark I use is my little programming things that I do, little contests.
Just try to run Topaz AI
I don't
on
do
some
that.
video.
Right. Yeah.
Like,
But I
it's
do,
like-
run,
it's like-
like I said,
I do run
it's like
DxO
Whisper.
Mark and
72
Capture
hours.
One, and the NIC plugins and stuff, and it runs just fine
Right.
on an M1 Max. I'm very happy with that.
Yeah.
I do my photo
Yeah,
editing.
I'm
on
starting.
that.
I have a surfer in my house too, and I'm starting to wonder if my end game is going to be to, rather than having be like a low end Mac Mini server, have it be like a studio that's beefy,
Yeah.
and use it for all the AI grinding that I need to do every day,
Right.
and not worry about it so much for my day to day. But I don't know. I mean, I do edit video and audio on this system a lot, and it is nicer to have the studio for that. But like, I'm just saying, for most use cases, just docking, especially since you can charge and drive everything off of one Thunderbolt cable, that's a pretty good setup.
And
That's-
and I
I mean, I tend to leapfrog. I'll like every 2 or 3 years I buy a new Mac. 1 year it's going to be the mobile one. 1 year is going to be the desktop one. I've been overdue for a Mac Mini upgrade for a while, but I've still got my i5 iMac on the desktop on another desk. The one that I basically only do like writing and researching on. So that's not as though it's a big heavy deal. But I mean, Jason, like you've got a good point there. Where now there's so much that's in motion in the next 5 years, including AI tools that are not like a separate Topaz AI that you're going to like fire up because, hey, I just want to upscale this one thing and then I'm going to walk away and come back. But given how important that so many companies are, how much value they're putting into adding AI models that run locally, like what if, like just as part of outputting video of any kind, there is an AI component to it where extra memory is going to be really, really important? Or what if there's an important tool like you're counting on transcription, just not as, again, you and I both use it as a component of the recording process so that we have a transcript of something if we need it. But what if there's a workflow in which basically everything that you record or everything that you do should have an AI transcript with it that always runs in the background? That's another application where you're probably going to need a whole lot of application RAM, and you're going to need a lot of processing overhead. So it's going to be I really do think that it's going to be the death by 1,000 cuts in the next not within the next 5 years, but let's say 5 years from now, where if you're expecting a Mac to give you 5, 6, 7, 8 years worth of use, it's a good long-term investment, unless you really are planning on getting heavy iron in 2028, 2029, 2030. As it is, like last year, if I had upgraded my Mac Mini, I would certainly have settled for a very, very good up-spec'd regular Mac Mini. Now, however, I'm sort of holding off to see what happens, what gets released in 2024. Is there going to be like a pro processor that is going to be within range of my budget? And would I rather now not have to figure out what's going to be most practical for me now, but what's going to be practical for me in 5 or 6 years? And that's basically what I'm saying, is that I'm the person who was going to say, oh, well, I don't need a Mac Studio. I appreciate it, but gee, I could put my money elsewhere. Now I'm thinking maybe I'd better, like, if I can find another $500 to get the next level processor, maybe I would rather have to do that rather than deal with, oh man, I'm trying to do spell check on this dock, and I'm getting beach ball curses from left to right, up and down, because it's trying to do a data center operation that on something that BB Edit used to do as a grep.
Well, if I was trying to split the difference, I think what I would probably do is actually just buy a higher end MacBook Pro. See, Alex, I've come around to your side now, to the MacBook Pro. And then, because it docks just as easily. And I will tell you, having used this sort of 2-computer lifestyle of having the laptop in the back most of the time and the Mac Studio up in the front, is the advantage the laptop has is it's the same computer everywhere. And and cloud services help you sync a lot of stuff, but like, I go to the laptop and I'm like, oh, I have to reapply all those software updates that I did before. And like, so there is something to be said for investing in a really good laptop that which is going to be a little more expensive, but take it everywhere and dock it when you need to. I've not lived that life in a long time, but I see the appeal of it, even though right now I'm still, I think, pretty happy with the value of the Mac Studio and replacing it every 3 or 4 years.
And I think that one of the things that I purposefully do with what I do, how I manage this, is that there is one room in my house that has a lot of technology and almost no technology in the rest of the house. And that is definitely purposeful, in the sense that I walk out and maybe I take an iPad out, but mostly it's just my phone. And then there's an Apple TV running into the TV. But the rest of my house is pretty analog. And I do that so that when I walk out of the room, I'm not doing this. Like, when I have a laptop that's current, I'm constantly like setting it on the desk and setting it on my lap and setting on things and working on things. And I just found that I wanted to be able to walk out of my house, walk out of my space and have it be in, just go to the rest of my life. And so and I think that's just different people have different ways of approaching it. I just have a hard time thinking if I allow myself to have that electronics around me all the time. It's hard for me to think about new things.
Yeah, I agree. And I would also say that, look, Apple has not made it as easy as it could to live the desktop, laptop lifestyle.
Right.
Oftentimes, I find myself having to pull the laptop out and open it up in order to authenticate something or to boot it in the proper way that it shows the external display. That kind of stuff keeps happening. It is not a system that you can just keep the lid closed all the time.
Right.
And, there are moments of maintenance where you have to pull it out and open it up and all that. I don't love it. That's one of those things that makes me not want to do it, but it's still, it depends on your budget too. Like if you only have the budget to buy one computer, having a setup that you can take with you and also leave at your desk is the right solution, I think, right now. But some of us computer nerds have two computers, and that's nice too.
Yeah, and I was on a laptop solely for 25 years. So it was really COVID that broke that habit of mine, and then I didn't want to go back. But I was for 25, maybe arguably 30 years, my main driver was always a laptop. And I had other computers laying around, but everything, because for the same reason that you said, everything's on one computer and all the stuff's the same, and
it's
all
really
my
nice.
apps are there and everything's all there. And so I definitely lived in that world for a long time. And once I got out of it, I've just been resistant.
One of the things that, just quickly, one of the things that Apple and other companies could do very well is not just data syncing and app syncing, but also workspace syncing. Because what I love is that my MacBook is on my nightstand on a day like yesterday, where wake up, quickly see what happened to the world, like in the 8 hours that I was asleep. Realize that there is a brand new AI model. Apple's hit with a $2 billion fine, and there are brand new Macs. I can start work in bed, and get on top of something, and then literally just carry it to another room, and all my tabs are there, all my windows are there, all my apps are there. It takes a while to get that reset on a desktop, and I really wish that Mac OS and other OS could simply say, please keep these two desktops synced. You have the same apps available, you have the same connections available, services available. Just try to make as good as possible, mirror the setups on every single thing I have.
Are you going to get a briefing, Jason? Have they contacted you?
Have they contacted me about the MacBook Air? Yeah, I'm not supposed to say, but sure, yes.
No,
I will get one.
No, they have. Yes,
I have not.
Yes.
I have not received any briefings yet, but I anticipate that I will soon.
I hope your briefings come from the people who signed the memo, because I don't know if they're real names. They're very fanciful. Starlane Metza and Lisette Viviana Dupont.
Well, I'll just say that I know Star very well and talk to her all the time, and
I love her name.
We call her Star. We call her Star. She's very helpful.
And I hope to get to meet Lisette Viviana Dupont at some point. They do sound like maybe something from Wes Anderson.
You meet them in the
movie,
One Percenters. The One Percenters meetings,
the One
right?
Percenters will meet. We'll meet. Yes. Let's take a little break. Alex Lindsay, Jason Snell, Andy Anako. We're talking Macs, and there's lots more to talk about. There is a lot of Apple news this week, but I do want to mention, more than mention, I get email every week now from people who say, thank you for telling me about Fastmail, my email provider. I've been singing its praises for a decade. I'm glad we could finally do some ads for them. They're the leader. They say in email privacy. They've been doing this for more than 20 years. They're really a leader in email. They use an open source server that they constantly contribute to. And so the things that Fastmail does trickle down to other email servers, but why not use the best? Why not use the leader? Fastmail. They move email forward with new internet standards and open source innovations that power many other email services. Fastmail lets you do it the way you want to do it, by the way. You can use your desktop client. It works with Apple Mail. You can use your Apple Mail on your iPhone if you want, but they also have great one of the best webmail interfaces I've ever used. Frankly, it's all you need, probably. And they have iOS and Android apps that have, for me, completely replaced the built-in apps. Fastmail has so many nice features, like their quick settings, which lets you choose new themes, switch between light and dark mode, change text size, generate masked email addresses, auto-save contacts, set default reminders, and more, all without leaving your mail interface. Fastmail lets you add or buy a domain. All my domains now go through Fastmail so that they handle the email. They set up all the records for me, so I get SPF and DKIM and DMARC. I get all the authentication, which means my email goes through to everybody. Fastmail does it right. Not everybody does. I hate to say it. And I got to point out that you pay for free email. First of all, if you care about email, why are you going with free? Fastmail is as little as $3 a month. And if email is important to you, you really ought to get Fastmail because there's real support from real people. You can add your own domain to Fastmail. And you pay for free email with your privacy, right? At Fastmail, all your data stays yours. Nobody's scanning your data. You get better productivity features, again, as little as $3 a month. If you want to move, it's easy to take that old mailbox, move it over, import it into your new Fastmail mailbox. You can keep your old mailbox open and have the mail forwarded to you. Fastmail will go out and fetch it if you want. I also use Fastmail's calendars and contacts. I've completely replaced Google. They're my centralized cloud-based contacts and calendars because they're private. And Fastmail has extremely good spam filters that you control if you want. You can even use the Civ programming language to actually write spam programming, filtering of all kinds, not just spam, of all kinds. And I do that. It works great with your Bitwarden or your 1Password to generate unique email addresses that they understand and Fastmail understands, but the bad guys don't know. I love Fastmail. It's the better email service. Have I given you enough reasons to try it out? I'm just scratching the surface. If you care about your email, if email is important to you, pay for it. Quality really is worth paying for. As little as $3 a month with Fastmail. Actually, it's free for the first 30 days. Go to fastmail.com/twit. No tracking, no ads, no information sharing. Fastmail.com/twit. We thank Fastmail. I personally thank Fastmail for making my mail better. I'd given up on mail for a long time because it was so useless. Fastmail filtering just makes it so easy. Fastmail.com/twit. Actually, I have an unread mailbox now that I can check every day that doesn't have spam. It only has, things addressed to me and so forth. But I can very quickly go through the mail I haven't read. Instead of going through the piles of garbage that people, everybody must get this. Just endless amounts of nothing in your email. I don't know, it's crazy. Okay. So now Gurman said something interesting on Twitter, and one of our Discordians, one of our Club Twit members pulled it up. He said that the iOS 17.4, which was intended for the new iPads, wouldn't be ready until end of month. So it's his contention that you won't see an iPad Pro announcement until the end of the month. He also says that because of the in-person briefings, which were on Monday, it seems unlikely that they would do that.
No, I disagree with that. They do also. I don't know. I'll just say that they do lots of briefings these days. Post-pandemic, Apple does lots of briefings via remote, and then they FedEx you the computers overnight, and you don't need to go anywhere. And I live a mile. What is not a mile? An hour and a half from Cupertino, from Apple Park, and they don't always have me come there for a briefing because they've converted to this online briefing system. So I'm not sure I agree with Mark's supposition there. His intel about the OS release, it's possible. That could mean they will release it later this month. It could also mean that they'll do an announcement and announce it on the 12th or the 19th and then take orders later that week and ship it the following week. There are lots of options there. So, Mark has the sources, but the fact that he's trying to backfill from an OS release time and suggests he doesn't actually know when the release will actually happen.
Yeah. So it could be next Monday. I was kind of hoping for a magic manic Monday March, where every Monday in March we got a new something.
I mean, never say never. There could be something that's not on his radar. There could be like an AirPods update, or they could make like the USB-C version of the keyboard. I mean, there's all sorts of weird
Apple TV. We're due for another Apple TV. Apple Pencil. We know there's going to be a new pencil, right? Or we thought we knew that. We heard
that'll go with the iPad though, right? Because that'll require the new iPad, I think.
Yeah. And OLED screen, very expensive 10 inches and 12 inches, right?
So there are reports now that it's not going to be as very expensive as we thought, which is good. Like I think all of us were assuming that if you add OLED to an iPad Pro, it would be a lot more expensive. It may be that that really nice mini LED backlight that's on that the large iPad Pro was itself kind of expensive, and the rumors now are that it'll be more expensive, but only in the maybe couple $100 range, not in the $500 range, and that because OLED requires less physical hardware than something like backlighting, that these might actually be really thin and small in a way that like way thinner than the current iPads. So that's kind of cool if that's true.
Yeah. All right.
We'll see. How do you feel about the iPad? You want to be down? Are you down on the iPad, Leo? Or are you?
I can't decide if I'm down.
From Mac to Vision Pro. Where does the iPad land?
Well, that's a good question.
Your, spectrum of hate.
You're going to pile on now, aren't you?
I'm just saying. You didn't seem enthusiastic about the iPad, so I'm wondering. I'm curious.
I have the iPad Pro 12.9 based on the M1. I use it once in a while. It's not, it's not a go-to device. So OLED screen, I'm tempted, but I think I would just be another thing like the Vision Pro would just gather dust in my office.
So toward the Vision Pro side of this, I use my iPad Pro all the time because it's my reading device. So like when I have an e-reader, but like in the morning, I'll get my tea and my breakfast and I am reading RSS and I'm, all of that stuff happens, checking my email, checking Slack.
I do that on my laptop.
All of it on my iPad.
I have a mini though in bed. When I'm in bed reading, I do have a number of Kindles, but I like the mini for,
Mini's really good.
No, absolutely.
So I'm a mini fan. Would they release a new mini? No, just the Pros.
It needs to be updated. It's way behind, so I think that they'll probably will. Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, I mean, I love I'm with Jason. I use my 12.9 inch iPad Pro pretty much the same way. It's for everything for which a keyboard connected to a screen via a hinge with a non-touch screen. For every job that's not appropriate for that, I use the iPad for. If the iPad Pro didn't exist in the form as good as it would be, I would be very, very tempted. I would have been very, very tempted to spend $1,000 on a Windows convertible, because the idea of hardware that is adaptable to the task at hand, whether it is I am reading a comic book or I'm reading a newspaper, I'm just lying back on the sofa, a keyboard is in my way and it's superfluous. Or I want to draw something, I want to do some art, where the keyboard is absolutely not what I want to do, and I don't want to tether another device to it in order to do those sort of things. On and on and on and on. If Apple made a device that was a convertible, there would be no need for the 12.9 inch, because again, I mean, it's generous to say that Apple felt as though they solved the problem of mobile computing in 2010. I think they solved it as soon as they said, you know what, that trackball in the PowerBook annoys me. Why don't we do that with a trackpad instead? They're perfect. We were never going to do anything else with mobile computing anywhere. Hinge, keyboard, screen that you don't touch at all. Boy, we can't improve. Let's not gild the lily here. Whereas other companies are even trying to say, you know what? Let's go completely nuts. Let's have a laptop that's nothing but screen that folds in half. And I think that's practical, but at least they're trying. It's from these early impractical ideas that things like, here is a tablet computer that is awesome, that will run desktop class apps, that will again adapt to whatever it is you're doing at this moment, wherever and however you're doing it, instead of making you make room to balance something on your knees or something in the way. That's where Apple could really they're hiding their light under a bushel when it comes to design, when it comes to that.
I think that this is a key point when we talk about the MacBook Air and the MacBook Pro. When we talk about the iPad, one of the things I wrote a few weeks ago, I wrote a Macworld column about how I want Apple to just do weird stuff. Like the Vision Pro is weird, and that's great. Like I want Apple to try stuff. I think the most burning necessity for the Apple is to experiment more with mobile device styles, because we have the iPad and we have the MacBook Air, but the PC market has had, and I know that Apple doesn't rush into every market where there's a PC market product. They wait and bide their time, but they have been experimenting with convertibles on the PC side with weird convertibles for more than a decade now. And some of those are interesting. I wonder, Leo, if this might be a segue to also mention our friend Federico Vitici's story at Mac Stories last week or Monday, where he literally ripped the screen off of a MacBook Air and put an iPad there and using software created his own Apple convertible. And he's doing it not as a stunt, and he's not doing it.
It's a little stuntish.
It is, but he is following his own bliss. If you know Federico, this is very Federico to do this. But what we all benefit is we didn't have to tear the screen off our laptops, and he gets to explore a little bit what a convertible from Apple might be like and what advantages it might have.
So what did he do?
I really like.
He ripped the keyboard off of an old, it looks like MacBook Air.
He took an M2 MacBook Air, not old, and he took the screen off of it. He took the screen off. So it's basically like a laptop deck that you have to supply a monitor for. And then he put a bunch of magnets on it and snapped his iPad Pro to it as the display using screen sharing and universal control. So he can actually run a hybrid iPad Mac. It's bananas. But again, Apple owns all these operating systems. Apple builds all this hardware. And I don't know what the right product is, but what Andy was talking about the iPad, he really is getting at something about this. What are the weird spaces in between Apple's products right now? And is there a place for something that is ergonomically different? Again, not for everybody. I think almost everybody's just going to choose a Mac laptop and probably a MacBook Air. But for some users, the great thing about the iPad has always been that it is actually a convertible. It can be a bare tablet when you want it to be. It can be in a keyboard case with a trackpad when you want it to be. You can pull it out and use a pencil and write on it when you want to. And the Mac doesn't do that. Yeah. So what Federico's trying to do is all right, but what if the Mac was part of that mix too? And how would that work? And the answer is it's real weird, but it's a place to start.
And yeah, it's a way to start that is get the discussion going. And we should mention in all this discussion that Apple is at a disadvantage when it comes to the Windows market because there is such a huge demand for Windows hardware that you can take an oddball thing and say, you know what, we don't know if this is going to sell, but here's a good idea. We have some indications that people will buy. Well, this is at least worth doing an initial production run on. Apple can't take, the Vision Pro notwithstanding, Apple can't afford to simply say, we're going to try to make a couple million, just at maximum a few 100,000 of something in case people kind of like this off to the side product, and if it demonstrates that there's an actual need for it. So they can't take that many risks. However, this is the time where I really wish they did something like the goofy stuff you see at CES and the goofy stuff you see at Mobile World Congress, where we built, here's one of the things that we built because we wanted to see how well this would work.
This is, by the way, I should point out the video that we're looking at is Luke Miani. Not Federico Vitici. Federico was inspired by this. Luke wanted to take his M2 MacBook Air keyboard and use it with a Vision Pro, and Federico added his own
iPad to the mix.
His own interesting concept and these are magnets. What are these in the back? It has to attach via magnets.
Yeah,
I guess.
Magnets. How do they work?
Magic.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, I think that fundamentally, it's literally Apple has their design team is focused on other things, and the laptop is kind of I think that for them the laptops are just water under the bridge. Here's your laptop. We're focused on these other things, whether it's Apple Vision Pro or it's other. We can decide whether we agree with that or not. But I think Apple's design team doesn't really. I feel like they really look at the laptops, and to some degree, I mean, they keep on updating the power, but I'd be surprised if we see a new form factor for the Studio, the Mac Pro, or the Mac Mini in the next 5 years.
Yeah,
they're kind of we're not spending time on that.
And they're close to perfect. So I think there's no reason to spend time on it, right?
Well, and just they work as a in the box that they put them in the shelf called laptop, and they're here, and we'll make incremental changes to that, but we're not going to. The design team at Apple is actually not that big. And I think that they don't have any interest in reopening that other than making minor changes because they've got other fish to fry, and they'd much rather work on those other things because I think they look at
what are the other things?
A lot of these is legacy. they work on a lot of things. I don't know anything about. I'm making this. I mean, this is my impression from the outside. But there's a lot of things that they're working on all the time, and they'll make some fine adjustments to it. But like when you say, "Oh, we'd really like to do something crazy," that's retooling it. That's like retasking a satellite. It's like retooling a factory. It's going. There's a huge amount of things that go into, like, it's not just the design team. It is, how are we going to make those parts, and what's going to machine those parts, and what kind of factory is it going to be, and where is that factory going to be? And is it going to be in Vietnam or China or United States? And so there's this huge that you open up this huge can of worms that I think that takes up a lot of resources, takes up a lot of energy. And I think Apple looks at these machines as like, this is this is where we're at right now. Like I still think Apple's pretty focused on the vision.
I agree with you. I think Apple views the laptop as a solved problem. That said, we also know from various reports that they've been working on how best to use folding screen technology in their products for quite a while now, and they haven't shipped anything yet, which I'm not surprised by, because the folding screen stuff is still a little bit weird. But like, it sounds like they are getting closer, according to Mark Gurman anyway, to doing something. And when it comes out, it may not be like, I don't think they need to reinvent the MacBook Air, but trying to do something, maybe not what Federico is doing, but something that's like, well, what is there an iPad that's convertible, either from a smaller iPad to a larger iPad? Is there a phone that's convertible? Like that those are all weird things that they're trying, because there's a new technology that maybe enables different designs that aren't a solved problem, that would give them another thing. Because like the iPad itself is something that came into the market and everybody was like, well, why do we need this? And it has found a niche. It's not necessarily revolutionized computing, but it has found a bunch of people who really like that design, and that, I mean, form factor is the word that people always throw out, right? Like, it's different. And I think Apple is aware that there are other new different shapes that they can make computers in, as especially folding displays happen. But clearly they're not at the point where they could. I mean, we've talked about this here before. Part of the problem with Apple is that anything they ship, the Vision Pro is actually even sort of an exception to the rule. They got to ship it in volume. And that means that, like, you can't just say, we'll ship 1,000 folding displays. It doesn't work that way.
It's not just at volume. It's that from Apple's perspective, it has to be shipped at volume at a very high level of quality. So the thing 100%. is that so the design, how it fits together, there's not a whole lot of move fast. So it's that any new product at Apple takes up so many resources and so much attention to detail. And this is why they don't produce. I mean, there's lots of products I'd love to see Apple make. I'd love to have a refrigerator that was made by Apple. That'd be great. Anyway, so the thing is but it takes so much energy for them to get it to the level that they feel is equal to the brand, that it is so hard to get them. I think that any product that you change is a big deal. And I think the folding screens, I think we're all glad that they haven't gone down that path, mostly because I don't know anybody that's bought a folding screen twice. For the, like they bought one,
I do,
broke, then they bought an iPhone or they bought something else, and so they're like, oh, it was a fun trip, but eventually it dies,
It's not ready yet for prime time. But I could see some value in something that you could make more compact. If you could get it working better.
It might, but like Apple, and I think that Apple's research in that area is, it might get ready for prime time, and Apple needs to be ready to respond to that at some point in the future. So you keep on, this will take a decade to get good at it. You can't just start flat-footed, and so I think Apple's got a bunch of stuff that they kind of work on in the back end that is just kind of like, well, we'll see how this goes. And so they know enough about it that they could pivot. For Apple, pivoting is, we could produce something in 3 years, or 4 years from the time we have an idea to the time it's in the pipeline is probably at least 3 to 4 years.
I hate to say it sounds like you're describing a moribund company, but go ahead.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the thing is, like, the creativity is not a solved problem. It's seeing what you did before and thinking, what did I not think about the last time? What do I know now that I didn't know before? I think that one of the biggest risks that Apple has is that they do control the entire market. This is not an antitrust screen. Don't worry about it. But they do control the entire hardware market for their device. So they've never really known what it's like to have to compete with another laptop on equal footing. And so they don't really have to innovate. They don't really have to push the button. They don't have to figure out something that will really heartily improve this thing and make you think, my God, why have I not had a laptop with this feature before? Because they don't have to. What are you going to do? You're going to switch to Windows? Their user base is probably not going to do that. Whereas in the Windows space, one of the reasons why you do see so much diversity is because there is so much competition for resources and there's so many predators out there. That's when you see high-speed evolution. So I don't know if, and as it is true that a company that exists as on a marketing level as big as Apple, with a market as worldwide as Apple, every decision that they make has an immense amount of practical implications. But that's true of literally anything they do. When they switch to a USB 3 port on the Apple Pencil, they have to make all those same kind of decisions. So that is a factor, but it's not the overriding one. I just think that if Apple can really put their foot down if they want to. Again, they did make a $12,000 solid gold gadget watch, and they've made this Vision Pro, which is fantastic in its way, but in most agreement is that it's great for super, just like a folding phone. It's a great thing for an early adopter, people who see this and people who have the money that they can make these early investments in something that might spend a lot of time inside a drawer, but not necessarily ready for bulk things. It's just disappointing to me that they are not putting their priorities into the single product, which is the single most popular Mac that they make. They don't necessarily want to put that kind of innovation into the most influential product in their product line. That's just my thought.
In other news, unless you want to do a Vision Pro segment, Jason.
It's okay. I mean, when are the Vision Pro picks happening?
Sorry.
Fine. I don't want to put it on, because that's a lot for a podcast.
We could do the Vision Pro pick of the week. You want to do that every week?
No, it's a lot of work. Extra work. I'll do some Vision Pro picks. I'll do some Vision Pro picks.
Just teasing you.
That'll happen.
It's okay. You got a good RSS reader for your Vision Pro?
I'm still using it in iPad compatibility mode right now.
You know what? I should just shut up because it really irritates Apple fanboys when I am not sufficiently worshipful of any Apple product. So I will just keep my mouth shut. The EU isn't exactly worshiping Apple at this point either. They just fined them 1.8 billion euros. This is the case we talked about last week. Spotify brought it up, saying, Apple has their own app, which they don't have to pay 30% on purchases in, and which is previously, it's automatically installed on all new iPhones. That's kind of unfair. Brussels agreed. And they are fining them big time for abusing their dominant position for music streaming on the App Store. Apple, of course, will appeal, which means this won't happen for ages and ages. The commission said it had this is from the Financial Times, gone beyond its standard fining procedure to provide a deterrent, not just for Apple, but for other, quote, companies of a similar size with similar resources. Google. Google. The funny thing is Apple's response was, oh, man, Spotify's using our stuff for free. They don't pay us anything, man. It's not nice.
Yeah. That was embarrassing, I thought, because this is like, okay, kid, we're grounding you because you took the car without asking and you wrapped it around a tree. And you're saying it's just not fair that my parents don't want me to ever leave the house and have my own life. No, leave the house. Ask
Please,
to borrow the car and use
I beg of you.
because the EU both in the press release that they put out and in like the actual filing, they were really, really specific about the reasons why they were slapping Apple with this. It wasn't that Apple was trying to make the case, oh, well, gosh, they're the lapdogs of Spotify. I'm not quoting here, but essentially saying Spotify is like, has got them on a leash and they're under Spotify's influence, the single most popular platform, music platform. They're trying to get the little guys like us to to not make any money whatsoever, even though Spotify is making so much money off of Apple and our innovation and our platform. No, EU was saying that, okay, the idea that you're not allowed allowing companies to, like, as we've been discussing so many times before, you can't say, oh, by the way, in case you don't want to spend a 30% tariff that we have to pass on to you, go to our website. We will give you a better deal over there. Not being able to link out to the other site, not being able to have these discussions with customers. That was the specificity of what they were talking about. And Apple was also saying, they were unable to prove a monetary disadvantage to consumers. Like, okay, they kind of did a little bit, but once again, in the filings, this is not the Digital Markets Act. This is an older act that dates back to like 2006, the whole point of this law was not necessarily to say, the definition being that you're hurting consumers by charging them more money. It's you are exerting an unnecessary level of control over market. The actual, I think I have the actual section. It was section 102A, I think they said it was, and it's basically specific things that Apple was objecting to, but also specifically just manipulating your marketplace in a way that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Here it is: directly or indirectly imposing unfair purchase or selling prices or other unfair trading conditions. Article 102, Section A. And that is, it's hard to, it's easy to argue about whether or not the EU should insist that Apple allow users to sideload apps. That's a very, very good conversation to have. But if you're talking about unfair trading conditions, and then you cite things like you can't tell your customers that there's a way to avoid having excess fees passed on to them by getting a better deal elsewhere by going to our own site. That's what they dinged on, and so that's why I thought that this memo was kind of embarrassing.
Let me read Apple's response without the whiny voice, to be fair.
Yeah.
Today, the European Commission announced a decision claiming the App Store has been a barrier to competition in the digital music market. The decision was reached despite the Commission's failure to uncover any credible evidence of consumer harm and ignores the realities of a market that is thriving, competitive, and growing fast. The primary advocate for this decision and the biggest beneficiary, well, the money does not go to Spotify, so I don't know if they're the biggest beneficiary. Anyway, is Spotify, a company that's based in Stockholm, Sweden. Okay, thanks for the input. Spotify is the largest music streaming app in the world, has met with the European Commission more than 65 times during this investigation. Today, Spotify has a 56% share of Europe's music streaming market, more than double their closest competitors, and pays Apple nothing for the services that have helped make them one of the most recognizable brands in the world. A large part of their success is due to the App Store, along with all the tools and technology that Spotify uses to build, update, and share their app with Apple users around the world. We're proud to play a key role supporting Spotify's success, as we have for developers of all sizes from the App Store's earliest days. It's not as clear. It's not completely clear-cut, because Apple has a point. Spotify's app is built with Apple tools, which they use for $99 a year. I presume they don't pay more than that. Apple does have them on the App Store and does let people download it using Apple's bandwidth. And are we saying Apple shouldn't?
Bandwidth, but the entire mechanism, like the whole
mechanism.
Entire mechanism that protects it. And
are we saying that Apple shouldn't bundle its app? I mean, I think these problems arise. I have the same problem with Google and YouTube. These problems arise when a platform company then starts to have its own stuff. Microsoft got in trouble in the 80s and 90s when they were bundling a browser with the operating system. And this is the problem, is those lines get blurred because Apple's business is also music. It's not just being the platform.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'll just say, I already spoken a lot, so I'll be quick. But like the argument that, they're exploiting our resources and our app store and the developer tools. They have to. You force them to. You don't allow them to develop the Spotify app with anything else, so you don't get to make that argument.
Yeah. That's a good point.
It also says something about how weak their business model is. I was struck while watching that press release, reading that memo, I guess we're calling them today, is that they they're like, oh, they took all this from us. They did this for free and this for free and this for free. And they built a huge business on it. And it was for free. And I read that as like, wow, you guys kind of screwed that up then, didn't you? Right? Like you should have maybe found another business model that didn't allow them. I mean, but that's the way they view it is like, oh, our largesse allowed them to create their business. Yeah. And as to Andy's point, there are very great limits to that. I agree, Leo, though. This is, for me, when we argue about this stuff a lot on this show, but for me, this is the peak of the problem with Apple's business model is when they launch services that compete on their platform but don't have to follow the rules that the competitors have to follow.
100%.
And that is music primarily, but also books, right? And there are probably some other examples, but those are two very good ones.
No one
where
uses the books. I
mean, I know. Well, I mean, I'll tell you though, Alex. I as a Kindle user, I could never buy books on the Kindle app, right? I have to go to the web to do that. And Kobo, it's the same way. And so it's degrading the experience on this platform for anybody who's not in the Books app, because the Books app you can just buy books and it's really easy, and you can just subscribe to Apple Music just in the app, and it's more complex because there is no 30%, there's no magic 30% middleman that Apple pays who takes that money away. It just Apple is paying it from one pocket to another, and they've created a business that is competing with a different business that has to follow all those rules. And that is where, to me, they are using their power as a platform owner to force themselves into an advantage competing with other things on their platform.
I guess the question I would have is that what percentage of book sales belongs to Apple, which, so they have whatever that is. But the point is that it hasn't been particularly useful because I don't even consider, I have to admit, I'm so used to buying Kindle books on the Amazon thing. Until you said it, I forgot that that's how I buy books.
Sure, but
but I would never buy a book from Apple Books because I'm kind of like, that's a hole.
Yeah, my counter argument would be, how much better would the experience be, and how many more people might buy Kindle books if it was easy to buy Kindle books instead of saying, oh, forget it, I'm not going to even bother, right? Which I think does happen to a certain degree. And Comixology was like that, right? In the early days, where there's all of a sudden you're like, I can't buy comics on the iPad in any reasonable way. So how many people just get lost, or how many sales do they lose because iPad is not as good of a place to be for that? I think that's part of it too, regardless of how bad Apple's implementation is. Because books feels very much like kind of a failed implementation, but it also put up a block against Amazon. And then, in Spotify, I'm sympathetic to the idea that Spotify is the leader here, not Apple. But Absolutely. It doesn't change the fact that what would that competition be like if it was more fair, and if Apple hadn't erected these barriers?
And you just pointed out, by the way, some real consumer harm. So when Apple says there's no evidence of consumer harm, well, the consumer harm is inconvenience. And if Spotify, as they used to, lets you buy it on the Apple Store, they charge you 30% more for the Apple thing, so it costs more. There's definite consumer harm here. I don't think the EU is wrong on that.
I do agree with you.
Just to be fair, I'm going to quote the press release that it wasn't just about money. They're saying, moreover, Apple's anti-steering provisions led to non-monetary harm in the form of a degraded user experience. Exactly. iOS users either had to engage in a cumbersome search before they found their way to relevant offers outside the app, or they never subscribe to any service because they did not find the right one on their own. So it's not just money, it's not just markets.
Yeah, because I think that the chances of any savings trickling down to the user is almost zero. Like, I mean, if we go 5 years from now after this, and we look, and is Spotify going to charge us less? No, they're not. And so we're not going to save any money. I do agree that the inconvenience is a user harm, but the savings is not going to get sent to us. It's going to get sent to Spotify, because Spotify has a bad business model that they're struggling to make work, and they keep on blaming Apple for it. Because the bottom line is Spotify's business model isn't working. It's not going to work. And the problem is that Apple is slowly building, and as someone who had Spotify since the day it came out until a couple of years ago, and had an overlap with Apple Music, I think the Apple Music app is clearly better than Spotify's from a pure sound perspective. It's like night and day. And, once you get used to when you go back and forth, I mean, going back to Spotify is kind of like going back to a NASCAR car rather than the BMW that you're driving now. And so the thing is that the issue that they have is that Apple is not taking the market right now from them, but it's going to. And I think and it's not going to be because of the price, and it's not going to be because of the convenience. It's because Apple has more money and is spending more money, is not worried about making money right now with music and their product and the content in those. If you look at the only for Apple TV content that's getting put into the into music, Spotify is looking down the barrel of something they can't compete with, and it won't matter whether they can't compete. They just simply can't buy that content, like the stuff that Apple can't do albums, because that would get them head to head with the record companies. But they can do live shows, and they're doing more and more and more of that. And if you just see it slowly stacking up, and if you're not using Apple Music all the time, you won't see it. And it's a really, by the way, look at what Apple is focusing on when you look at the live music, because you can see where they're trying to expand their market. So it is all 18 under. That's a.
So Alex, you're making the point. I hate to say it, but you're kind of making the point that.
But what I'm saying is that
Apple is using their monopoly power to dominate and conquer. And do you want to live in a world where one company produces everything? Or in a world where there's a number of companies competing to produce the same thing? And I prefer the latter, and I think that's what the EU is trying to encourage. You just made the argument for the EU, I think.
But it's not, but they're not. But again, I don't think that this is going to be the thing that helps. I mean, Apple, this 1.8 billion will probably get dropped to 500 million. Apple can afford to pay that every year for a very long time, and so the thing is that it is, so the EU can try to figure that out. It's going to, get hung up in the courts, and there'll be the new digital market out, and they'll have to figure out that.
I agree. This is probably not going to change anything.
So it's probably not going to change a lot.
But they should try.
But Spotify, I mean, and I have to admit, my edge on Spotify is they destroyed the podcasting market.
I'm not a fan of. Believe me, I'm not a fan of Spotify.
But let's see, they thumped it. And I talked to a lot of people about it, and the number one thing that they bring up. But when we talk about a big company came in, and destroyed the market.
Yes.
So they single-handedly destroyed the podcast market in the way it is. But I'm saying that's who we're trying to back up.
No, that's a mistake. That's Apple would like you to think it's about Spotify.
Okay.
It's not about that. It's about keeping Apple from using its monopoly power to dominate a market. Period.
Yeah. I mean, we keep coming across the fact that, yes, Spotify is losing money. Apple is probably also losing money. We can't make I don't like the argument that, Apple's a $2 or $3 trillion company. They can afford to run this into a huge loss year after year after year until no one else can afford to be in this market. Then they'll have it all for themselves. I fundamentally don't like that. Also, the fact that Spotify is out there is making Apple Music a much better product. We're seeing so many features just this year coming out. And that probably would not be happening if not for the fact that they have to compete with the number one in the market. Differences between Spotify and Apple Music, it's a matter of taste. I do prefer the Spotify app. It's much easier for me to get to the thing that I liked 2 days ago.
I would say much more austere.
Well, it doesn't matter. The majority of users use Spotify. We know that. Apple even concedes that.
And the thing is, it's not going to dig Spotify out of a hole. But if it means that if this company, again, I'm not begging for the soul of the little match girl who's freezing to death out trying to sell music subscription services on the street corner in the EU. I'm just saying that, if there's a reason why Spotify is not making as much money as they can, and if one of the implications of that is that 5 years from now Spotify might not be able to exist, that in itself is a good reason. And once again, this EU law is not about necessarily balancing. It's not specifically, there is this entity, Spotify, has been hurt to the tune of this amount of money, so we are taking a couple billion euro and giving it to Spotify. No, it is the intention of this law is to be a punishment, is to make it hurt, not because any specific amount of money was stolen, not even necessarily because it costs consumers any amount of money, but because, according to this law, they feel as though this is an unfair, fundamentally trade practice. Just like you can't just dump your garbage in the middle of the street. You don't have to prove that no one was hurt by the fact you dumped your garbage in the street. It is the rule that they have made that you can't do that. And if you do that and you get caught, you're going to get punished. So I have again, I'm not an absolutist when it comes to regulations. I do tend to think that regulation is at least worth discussing, because, again,
I wish
Apple
there were
tends not to do. Apple doesn't do anything until they get pressured to do so, whether it's from competition or from regulation. We've seen so many improvements in the App Store because they're feeling that pressure from regulation. So I'm all for this.
I will agree with you, Alex. I wish some regulator to come along and say, save podcasting, because Spotify is killing it. They've unfortunately, the U.S. government, which should have done something, hasn't. They've purchased a number of companies. For instance, there was an ad company that we used called Chartable that they purchased and then cut off. They said, "Oh yeah, you can't use it anymore." And that is completely designed to undermine the podcasting business. One of the reasons we have to talk about the club all the time is Spotify. But no regulator is going to come after Spotify. I wish they would. And as someone who's worked on a lot of podcasts for a long time, like you, I would say that if Apple was, I think we did better when Apple was the largest podcast provider. I didn't like that either, honestly. I think RSS is our friend.
Spotify sticking their nose into it and jamming it into the ground.
I agree. I'm no fan of Spotify. I don't like Daniel Ek. I think he is a self-serving guy who talks out of both sides of his mouth. He's on my list along with Tim Sweeney as somebody who acts like he's a hero of the people when all he's trying to do is make more money for his own company. But that all said, I just wanted to say, generally the perception is not what Alex is sharing about Spotify. Spotify's music features are ahead of Apple's. They've been ahead of Apple's for a long time. They're, AI-enabled mixes, all of their different mixes that they do, they're unwrapped at the end of the year. Like, generally, music fans perceive that Spotify is doing better on that front than Apple. And I'd actually argue it's one of those cases where there's legitimate competition between these two services. And I'm a little bit baffled about why Apple is so bad at it, but here we are.
Although, I think you can also make the case, I don't know, I think it was Andy who said that Apple Music has gotten much better because of the competition of Spotify. They're doing a lot more.
It's just not good enough.
It's still maybe not there. I don't know.
Yeah, Apple Books is bad too. I mean, the argument, I think Apple believes in Apple Music in a way that they don't believe in books, as Alex said. I think the books is actually a good example only because I think books was launched basically to take advantage of this and to make Amazon's life more difficult. And it failed at that, right? Partially because of a ruling against it legally, but also because I think Apple didn't really care about it that much and didn't put a lot of effort into it and still doesn't. And they do with music.
But I do think that is somewhat of a proof of, like, Amazon has not been slowed down by this. I mean, like it is. I mean, I between Audible and with I just don't think they've been slowed down very much. And Apple has not made any sizable impact in that area, regardless of the advantages that they might have, because Amazon has a superior model, and Apple was unable to move the market into something that is innovative. They could have innovated where it comes to books, and they have the tools, and the tools get better and better and better, but they're simply not. They're not doing that, and so I think that music. I think that for me, I guess I just feel like the music sounds so much better on the music app than Spotify. I mean, I just feel like I'm just listening to something that's going through a bed sheet. When I listen to Spotify at this point, and so it's not just this. When you get used to it, and you're listening on good headphones, you get a little. I mean, I get a little tired of.
So slight side issue. I'm curious. Are you? Do you know if you're responding to spatial audio or just the higher definition music? Because that's one thing that I don't know why Spotify, they keep threatening. They keep there's always rumors that they're going to be releasing higher definition music, but they never get around to it. Yeah.
Well, I can tell you why they're not doing spatial is because it's really hard to do spatial to Android. Yeah. Like, Android is a disaster when it comes to spatial, and so it's really, really hard to deliver spatial content. And this is one of the reasons I think Apple did spatial and really pushes it, is because it's really, really hard to do well somewhere else, because the object data, I mean, I speak from a lot of experience, the object data going into Android and Windows because the market is so fragmented, it is so difficult to deliver content. And Apple started working on that 5 years ago. And so all the devices know what to do with that data, and you don't know what to do with that data. I mean, it's just a disaster. It's a horrible environment to develop in. And so that's why it works for Apple and doesn't work for anybody else, is because of that.
Yeah, I love that. I love that circle that often happens when we have these discussions, that there are ways in which the fact that the Windows market is so fragmented means that they get to innovate, and you get so many options when it comes to laptops. The fact that Android market and Windows is so fragmented means that you can't do something where unification is a really, really important value add. I'm not necessarily on board with spatial audio myself yet. I know that there's a distinction between spatial audio and simple lossless high definition music, but it's to me, it's a thin enough line that, again, just this morning, there's a classical piece that I found like 3 or 4 days ago that boom, it's right there at the top. They again, there's if I want to mess around with stuff that I want to discover that I've never experienced before, it's right there for me. I do feel as though Apple keeps walking me away from stuff that no, here's an album, I liked it, I want to have it again. I'm sure these recommendations are wonderful, but you're making it harder for me to find that thing that I liked 3 days ago that I really want to revisit. That's that again, this is as we've been saying, this is why competition is such a really, really big, important thing. I'm so glad that Apple's made so many strides forward in Apple Music. I don't think it's bad at all. I think it's just different, and I'm glad that we get Apple, iOS versus Android, Mac OS versus Windows, Spotify versus Apple Music. If it creates options for people and it doesn't become a duality, that's the second worst thing is for things to be just a simple two-party system where a third-party candidate can't possibly get any traction. But I do think that this is in the end good for Apple.
The big third party that we don't track is YouTube.
Right.
Tidal
just had a big price drop, I think, possibly to keep competing.
Tidal's really competitive, but YouTube is a giant, in this area, like just massive when it comes to, and no one tracks it because they don't have an app in the same way. They don't treat their app. They have a YouTube Music, but just the views on YouTube of music and
they kind of go hand in hand because if you buy YouTube Music, you get YouTube Premium. You don't get any ads, and you can even say on YouTube Music, I want to see videos. So there's a real overlap. I mean, I agree. Most your kids are watching aren't YouTube Music subscribers. They're watching YouTube, but this is how they get
not just
you.
that. I mean, that's why Google Music went away and I thought that was a bad move. I think it's a lot less convenient to use it. I stopped using like YouTube Google Music when it became YouTube Music, but Google had that realization 5 years ago that we don't have Facebook, we don't have Instagram, we don't have Twitter, but we do have like the most important, influential, and lucrative social media network on the planet, and that is like people who are on YouTube and subscribe to channels that they like, and we can make so much more money per user if we move music from a separate experience in a separate app into this experience that they're already putting so much of their time into. So that's good on Google, but there's a reason why I don't instinctively think of YouTube Music when I think of like major music apps, because it just disappeared from my head as soon as they went into the YouTube app, because I don't like it at all.
I just have to say, honestly, this is really the battle between giants and
aristocratic. It's an aristocratic battle.
It's the 1%.
Well, but the thing is,
it's not even the 1%.
When dinosaurs fight, you don't want to be at their feet, and we are all walking around looking up, trying not to get stepped on. And
it's a fight between the makers of mustache wax and the makers of brass yacht rail polish, and we need to back aside in this, I think.
All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we'll find something else to talk about. Maybe it's time for a big Vision Pro segment. I think.
Ooh, exciting.
Sound effect, a drawer being opened, papers being shuffled aside, something being pulled out.
Our show today.
Jason and I are going to do all Vision Pro next week while you're gone. The next 2 weeks.
I hope you do. I hope you do. It'll be a fascinating show. You can do it now. I'm not stopping you.
I have to take my glasses off,
and I'll spend those 2 hours like spending $3,500 on things that actually improve my life.
Did I tell you about the things I bought? My brilliant glasses. Did I tell you this? These will come mid-April. They're going to make your Vision Pro look like they came from the 50s. These are regular spectacles with a heads-up display. And they have corrections, so I got my prescription. So I'm going to look like Poindexter wearing them, but I'll be able to see the world around me. Look at that. Nutrition labels, web searches. I don't know. We'll see. They were only a couple $100, so I ordered them.
Very Harold Lloyd.
Yeah, they do. They look like Harold Lloyd glasses.
I don't know if I could. They really are. They're not just Poindexter glasses. They are like Jerry Lewis doing a nerd character with like the teeth.
I know.
Those are the glasses that he would put on.
I got the clear ones so that they at least look high tech while I'm being nerdy, right? We'll see. Yeah, sure. Whatever. I'm going to look so bad in these. Our show today. But when you guys put on your VPs, I'll have something. Anyway, Andy, you do what You do you. Okay. Our show today.
It's what I'm best at. It's the role I was born for.
You were born to do you. Our show today brought to you by Babbel. I love Babbel, the science-backed language learning app that actually works. Be a better you in 2024. I'm learning Spanish, of course, because I'm going to Mexico. It uses quick 10-minute lessons, handcrafted by more than by the way, handcrafted, that's kind of important these days, by more than 200 language experts. So you can start speaking a new language with Babbel in as little as 3 weeks. It's created to help you build real-world conversations. It's not academic. It's really designed to help you order food, ask for directions, speak to merchants, and eventually, with all of the nice features of Babbel, you're going to just having conversations with people when you go visit. Babbel's wide range of learning experiences range from casual to intense. So there's always a way to fit in a Babbel session. I like it because I've got 5 minutes to spare. I can learn. From self-study app lessons to, yes, they have podcasts in the language you're learning, even live classes so you converse with other learners and native speakers. 15 hours with Babbel is equal to 1 full semester of college, of language learning in college. Plus, all of Babbel's 14 language courses are backed by their 20-day money-back guarantee. Now, I already have a Babbel lifetime subscription. I got it the minute I could, but here's a special limited time deal for you. 50% off a one-time payment for a lifetime of learning, a lifetime Babbel subscription. Now, this is just for you. Please go to babbel.com/MacBreak, BABBEL, BABBEL.com/MacBreak. You'll get 50% off at that address. Rules and restrictions may apply. A lifetime subscription. You'll never pay again. It was such a good deal, I did it immediately. So I can learn many languages, 14 of them eventually. Wouldn't that be cool? Babbel.com/MacBreak. I've tried them all. This is the one I really like the best for learning. Babbel.com/MacBreak. Thank you, Babbel, for your support of MacBreak Weekly. Super Tuesday. If you're in a state where they're voting, get out there and vote. Are you going to vote in your Vision Pros? Will they let you do that, Jason Snell?
I voted. Yeah.
Hey, how long before we do vote in Vision Pro? That'd be kind of interesting.
I mean, sure. You get little 3D candidates.
Yeah.
Why not?
They could talk to you on all sides. What are you looking at right now?
My monitor where MacBreak Weekly is.
Oh, okay. You could,
bring up the show doc. I can do stuff.
That whole keyboard that Federico built really was as much for a Vision Pro as it was for an iPad, right?
Yeah, I think a lot of us have realized that like text input especially just can't be done properly on the Vision Pro. You need a keyboard. I've been using just a Bluetooth Apple keyboard.
Bluetooth will work with it.
Yeah, you don't. Any one will work. The Apple one is nice because it auto reconnects a little bit better. But
okay.
And it's thin and light and great. But yeah, I've used. I got the full William Gibson Neuromancer effect with a mechanical keyboard because that's when I really feel like I've jacked into cyberspace. So some people really like using the trackpad. I don't think it's super necessary, but it's nice. And so having a little thing in your lap with a trackpad and a keyboard. It's nice for Vision Pro.
Yeah.
Like I said, not entirely necessary. I feel like the keyboard is what's necessary, but the trackpad is nice.
Do you spend time in it every single day?
I wrote a whole article on Friday. I was struggling trying to get my focus to write an article about why am I doing eye contact with my camera? You can't see my eyes. Anyway.
Because you're a pro, Jason. That's why.
I'm
you're
just
a pro.
That's right. I am. So I was struggling because I was like trying to get in a different mindset so I could write an article. And I ended up putting on the Vision Pro, getting that keyboard out, opening Runestone, the excellent text editor app for Vision Pro, and dialing in a little environment. And, 1,000 words came out. So
interesting.
That's been one of my most positive experiences.
Is that because you were isolated from...
A little bit. Yeah, I think so.
And you weren't tempted to go visit a dinosaur while you were writing? It was like, I'm writing.
I was not.
That's
I'm
good.
writing. Exactly right. Exactly right. More environments, Apple. That's
interesting.
high on my list.
That's the same reason why I go to a coffee shop sometimes or the library, just because not there's any resources there, because, okay, I'm in a different place. There's not the stink of bitter failure and loserdom here. I can let that air out of my office and get some work done.
Runestone is an open source project, but it is on Vision Pro, huh?
It is. Well, Simon, who wrote it, open sourced it because he wants other people to use it as the text editor in their iOS apps.
Cool.
But he did a Vision Pro build. He makes Scriptable, which is one of my favorite iOS apps because it lets me write widgets in JavaScript and put them out on my home screen, which is awesome.
Yes, you've talked about that before.
But
So this is a
Runestone
coding,
just
it can be a code editor too, huh?
Yeah, and it does Markdown, which is what I write in. So, but yeah, you can use it in various different coding languages.
Nice.
It's got full color color support for various languages, and you can do it in Vision Pro if you really want to. But I just wrote an article in it. Why not?
Nice. It supports Tree Sitter, which is nice. Does it do LSP? I guess it probably has to, right?
I don't know.
Yeah, Tree Sitter will give you a lot of the syntax coloring stuff. Nice, well done. So you don't mind getting into that Vision Pro every day and facing the world. You like that?
I don't. I mean, I've got the sizing right, and I've sort of figured out
that's pretty critical, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the number one thing is if people are having problems with the Vision Pro, the number one thing is that you might not have the right light shield. You might not have the right adjustment on the band. Because I think once I figured it out, and it took a few days, it's been perfectly comfortable and everything works ever since. And like I said, I can write in it. And if it was a distraction, I wouldn't be able to write in it. And I've written thousands of words now over the last few weeks in Vision Pro. It's actually, I think, a pretty fun writing environment. Actually, one of my favorite things about it is that it gives me a big display with my writing on it. And it's anywhere I want to sit in my house, for example. So I'm sitting in a different direction on the couch and stretched out, and I've never written in that location before.
That's interesting.
And it just, for whatever reason, it works. So it's a work in progress. I'm still learning. I mean, we joke about this Vision Pro stuff here, but one of the things I think is exciting is it's a new platform. Everybody's figuring it out. It is kind of a dev kit, right? It's not for regular people, but what's fun is discovering, this is really an interesting application of this technology, or, that did not work at all, right? Either way, it's really interesting to learn that stuff.
You wrote an article for Macworld about fit and how Apple could do a better job in the stores selling the Vision Pro.
They have trained their employees. They really focused on that demo, and I get it. You have to see it to believe it, and so they train them all to do that 30 or 20 minute, I guess, demo of the Vision Pro in store. But the problem is that when I had a fit problem with my light seal and I went in there, it looked like they'd never even heard of it before. And they're like, do you know, all they did was go to the app. I feel like they figured they wrote that app that measures your face and that was going to be the solution to the problem. But I got different measurements when I ran it different times. And so what's the right fit? And the right thing to do, and more of what they did, I think, with the Apple Watch, but they didn't do it so much with Vision Pro, is what happens if a customer is having fit problems? And probably what you should do is bring out a bunch of different light seals and walk through them and ask them certain questions and sort of find the right fit for them. And I didn't get any of that when I went to my store. The people were very friendly. They were very nice, but they didn't seem trained in making me get the right light seal. And the light seal they measured me for, they didn't have in stock. So they're like, I guess order it online. And that was a mess too. So I think that's where they live and learn, right? It's a new product. It's got ergonomics that I think are complicated in ways that Apple wasn't expecting and that Apple's not used to dealing with. So, okay. But now that they've learned from it, they need to train their staff better, because I think that they put too much into a Whisky app that measures your face and not enough into a personal experience in the store where they can actually let you try out different light seals and walk you through it and get the best fit. Because when you get a good fit, you can use it for hours and it's not a problem. But if the fit is bad, you'll be miserable immediately.
Good to know. How about you, Alex? You wearing your Vision Pro a lot?
Yeah, usually in the evenings. I have to admit I wear my glasses a lot, and I've been having a little trouble getting my order through for Apple, and it's all my fault, just user error. I keep on putting.
Getting your Zeiss. It took me a while to get my new prescription. Lenses. And
well, I had to get a new prescription, so that took weeks for me to get my appointment or whatever, and then I uploaded the wrong thing, and then couldn't figure out why I wasn't getting them, and then of course they send it back They didn't even send me the wrong ones. I sent the wrong prescription. The optometrist handed me a bunch of different prescriptions for a bunch of different devices, and I sent the wrong one to Apple. And of course, they sent me back. I noticed it just got filed into the wrong folder. I noticed they sent it back within an hour. Hey, this is the wrong prescription. I didn't see it for a week. So as a result, I put my contacts in usually sometime in the late afternoon, and I start to do whatever I'm going to do in stat and the meta oftentimes. And the big thing that I will say is that the amount of time, I keep on saying this, but the amount of time I spend in the headset in the Vision Pro is so much longer than I expect. And I think it's just that I get surprised at how long I was in them. The Quest, I'm in and out for the things that I'm there to play or things that I'm there to do. But with the Pro, I'm kind of, and I think it's just the ecosystem. And I think, again, like it is a test unit. And I think it's very addictive for people who are totally in the Apple ecosystem. So when you're using Apple Music and you're using Notes and you're using Messages and you're using all the tools, Keynote and all the other tools that are there, you just kind of blend into it. And before you know it, you're just kind of doing stuff in there and I'm going to watch a movie. I'm putting a movie over here because I want to watch it. And I'm going to work on something over here. And it's and I think that's the thing that you get caught up in. And suddenly you realize, holy smokes, I've been in here for 4 hours. Yeah. And I just hadn't noticed. My
friend Mike Hurley, who I do the Upgrade podcast with, called it the perfect noodling around device, which there's something to that because and also part of it is, how they don't have clocks in casinos? They also don't have clocks in the Vision Pro. They're actually, yes. I'm going to do some picks maybe in the next couple of weeks while Leo is out. There's some actually really great clock apps that let you put the time somewhere because if you don't do that, you're like, when is it 2? Is it 5? I don't know anymore, right? Like you really lose track of time. It's remarkable, but it is great for that noodling around.
It is. You're sitting there just kind of working on, I got a new app. Let's play with this app for a little while, or I'll grab this over here. Just the same way I noodle with a computer, but I'm noodling with the headset, and I'm, opening it up, and I might, I'll watch a part. I'll feel like watching part of a movie, and the problem is then I watched half the movie. Like I didn't think about, I got lost into that thing. And the thing that I have noticed, and a couple of us have talked about, is that I don't know yet if I can't identify the film stock yet on the Apple Vision Pro, but I'm pretty sure that if I knew what the film stock is for every movie I see, within 20 or 30 movies, I could probably get pretty close to being able to guess every film stock. That's how much detail I see in the
better than
in the thing,
UHD disc on a nice OLED screen, you think?
Yeah. I mean, I just noticed that all I know is that I have a pretty good TV, UHD. I never really thought about film grain until and what different film grains are until I started watching on the Apple Vision Pro. And now I'm like, that's kind of a cheaper film grain. like I went back to look at the I was watching Avatar. I think it wasn't Avatar. It was Tenet. And then I went back to for some reason I went back to Born Identity, and the Born Identity film grain is significantly higher. And something that I wouldn't have thought about shifting gears on my home TV, but I definitely thought about on my Apple Vision Pro.
I can't wait for Andy to try it because I know Andy is such a movie lover. And if we could get a movie that Andy loves on a service that's going to do high bit rate and it's got a native app and that big screen, because it is one of the things that the Vision Pro does best is, and I know people are like, but it's the resolution isn't really there and it's all an illusion. But it's like, I'm telling you, when you are in front of a big screen in your house, watching a movie well with it's either loaded on your device or it's a high bitrate stream, it's incredible. I mean, that is one of those moments where you're like, oh my God, I'm it doesn't have to even be like a modern movie, but like a really high quality restoration of something at a high bit rate. And then you put it in that big screen and it is, it is unreal.
Funny thing is I won't use Apple screens because I become a fiend for the size of that screen. So what I do is I use the OS's, Joshua tree or whatever. Yeah. But I use the OS's background and then I just set the screen on top of it so I can keep scaling it up, because if you use the Apple TV
the movie theater
screens, they're too small. Like I'm it's too far away.
You want to be at the drive-in in the front.
I want to be right there. I want to have to look back and forth on the
Andy,
screen.
we just have to
Apple,
sit
get
back
Andy
and
a review
enjoy
unit. Apple, come on, you got to do it.
Can do. By the way, I want to be very clear. I haven't asked for it yet, but I need to. I want to be very.
I'm waiting for like the third wave of returns, I think.
But the reality has set in.
Let me have one for a month or two.
But Andy, the reality has set in that even in nothing on the Apple Vision Pro will still make Napoleon worth 2 hours and 36 minutes.
God, what a terrible movie! Never get that time back. Is that not a terrible movie?
Yeah.
But you know what would be great?
I want to say I thought the acting was great. I thought the effects were stellar.
No.
I thought the cinematography was really good.
Phoenix.
I just wish it had
his acting was underwater the whole time. I know he was doing Napoleon. Sorry, it sucked. That was not acting. That was like, I'm kind of depressed.
Wow. And I thought my take on DiCaprio in Killers of the Flower Moon was kind of...
I wasn't a fan of that.
That was terrible,
but do see Poor Things. I think if seeing that in Vision Pro might be very, very interesting. That is an amazing film.
We forget, the Oscars actually, as it happens, is on Sunday, so it's a good time to talk about it. But like, one of the things we lose when we don't get to, A, don't get to see a movie in a real theater, and B, don't get to see a movie in like a really good big movie theater, is that the cinematography is the reason why it's a whole separate category is that it's all about the photography of the imagery of the thing. And I do find that like there are movies that I've seen like at the Coolidge Corner Theater or in like a really big presentation that I appreciated that I still didn't like the story. I still maybe didn't like the acting, but oh my goodness, to be in the world of the Last Emperor for 2 hours straight, just looking at this an immense field of view. And yeah, I mean, that is when I do get a review unit, that's going to be basically what I run down most of the battery on with most charge. I haven't, I've gotten the demo, so I've had some experience with it, but I'm intentionally like not saying anything about the experience or trying to get more experience with it until I can have like that fully immersive thing. I think it's going to be unfair for me to like put it on for 30 minutes, especially in an in-store demo, or even just to borrow a friend for like a couple of days with a misfitting light band and not the right lenses.
Honestly, I've said for years that movies are the original VR and best, seen in a theater.
Yeah,
maybe I'm wrong. I do want to say one thing. I do want to say one thing. Please, Jason and Alex, don't think you can't do Vision Pro content on here or you have to wait till I'm not here. I don't want to be the roadblock. I do not want to be...
We barreled in this time, didn't we?
No, I invited it. And I certainly... My opinion on the Vision Pro has nothing to do with our coverage of it. I don't want to be the roadblock, nor do I want to inhibit somebody saying something negative about it either. If positive or negative, we should cover it. So please don't hesitate.
I felt like you laid down a challenge for us to talk about Vision Pro today.
I wanted you to.
Like, okay, let's do it. All right,
I wanted you to find something. You did. You know what's funny is on Saturday we had Scott Wilkinson, our home theater guy, come on, and he literally convinced me to go out and buy a UHD DVD player and some discs.
They look good.
Because I want to compare them to streaming, but all you're going to get is streaming, right, on your or is that not true on your Vision Pro? Is there?
Well, you can download the file, but again, it's going to be a streaming file, so it's not going to be the bit rate. The bit rates on those UHD discs are insanely high. Like those are like 45. Well, I don't know. Was it 45 gigs?
Second, I think, or is it?
It's just like
I love movies.
They look amazing.
And honestly, if Vision Pro is the best way to watch a movie, that would be for me a killer app. That would be.
It's the best way to watch it at home. I mean, and the problem is the problem that I have is like Napoleon's a good example. Like I resisted going to the theater to see it because I was like, it's 100 and for a family of four, it's $125 to go to see that. With parking and popcorn and ticket prices and everything else, you're about $125 in. And then it was $25 to buy it, and I was kind of like, I'm just going to wait. And when I watched it, all I could think of is that I was upset that I wasted 2.5 hours watching it, and I kept on thinking it would get better. There was a couple good scenes, and I was like, oh, maybe it's going to actually speed up at some point in time and not just be about a relationship, instead actually be about tactics and battles and things like that. But it turned out that was not part of the movie. And so but if I had gone to the theater, I would have been livid. like there would have been like tweets about how much I hated that movie. And so I think that's the hard part is with these movies now is that and I think it comes down to when I was single, I took a lot more chances. Generally going out to a movie is something we do as a family, and I'm super resistant to risking time and money on movies now. Yeah, like that's the hard part.
For me, it's still COVID exposure. It's not that I won't go to a theater because of being in a crowd of people that may or may not be covering their mouths or whatever. But it's like, as you say, it's bad enough when it's like, oh my God, I wasted an afternoon. And even going alone, this was like $20-25 that I could have spent on something on a lot of secondhand books and movies that I could have fun with for hours and hours and hours. But I was thinking, I got COVID exposure for 2.5 hours, two seats away from someone who was just a coughing mess the entire time. Even if I don't get COVID, even if I just get a cough, that was not worth that experience.
Yeah. So anyway, those are the challenges.
This was no Barbie.
But I will say that I will say that Apple definitely, they're definitely focused on the experience of watching movies and TV and everything else on the Apple.
More about Vision Pro and more generally just anybody who's got TV Plus. I don't know if we mentioned this last week, but Apple just dropped like 50 movies on TV Plus that are just catalog movies of like really good movies. That
when the HBO, they're like, it's hard to build all of our own content. Why don't we add somebody else?
Yeah, so they added, and I think they're building it around the Oscars and saying, well, here's some great movies that you can enjoy for March and April. But it's like there are movies in there you haven't seen. If you're a TV Plus subscriber, you'll get them. A bunch of them are in 3D. So Vision Pro people, you've got an opportunity there to watch some more 3D content. And but yeah, I went to the movie theater this weekend. I don't normally do that, but we were visiting our kids in Oregon, and we went and saw Dune 2 at a really nice movie theater
jealous.
with theater seating, big cup holders, and I got a beer, and then it was so good. And the movie is great, and the experience was very, very good. It was a good screen. It was, nobody was.
Was it a 1570 screen?
Nope.
Was it IMAX or was it?
It was not IMAX. The IMAX was sold out, but it was a really nice theater. But I did have that moment as I was watching it thinking, I think this would be, other than the communal aspect of it, which is a thing, where there's a moment where there was a joke and I laughed at it before anybody else did, and I thought like I was the laugh track. I was like, "That's a joke. You can laugh at that." that character is actually. I know that the leader of the Fremen is this very serious guy, but it's Javier Bardem and he's hilarious, and you gotta go. It's like it's Dune, but there are jokes. It's okay, but I did have that moment where I thought, "What would this be like in the Vision Pro?" And I thought, I think it would look better.
Wow.
I honestly think it would look better.
I've had that experience a couple times since I had the Vision Pro, where I have gone to a movie and realized that I'm not sure if this is a better visual experience. Because we have to remember that a lot of theaters, a lot of the movies that we watch are running out of 1080p and at most 4K projectors. So it's very rare for you to see more than 4K and very common for you to see 1080p on a screen. Yeah. And so it is, it's not necessarily any sharper. And the problem for me is it's less about, less about COVID and more about all the people around me. And, I'm kind of like when I'm watching a movie at home, either with my family or by myself on it with an Apple Vision Pro, I don't have people behind me talking and doing.
But I don't enjoy
that at all.
And that's, I absolutely agree. It's especially when you have people who don't understand that, again, this is not your living room. Don't be texting. Don't be talking to people on the phone. But it's interesting how the Vision Pro can give you such an enhanced experience in some ways, but it can't give you the idea that even in your living room, the best movies are a shared experience. It's a communal thing. I really have to throw out one of Roger Ebert's most important quotes here that it's that movies are an engine for empathy, where it's the only way where it's not just telling me the story, but it's also showing me how you feel when you're telling me the story, and everybody can feel the same thing. The greatest experience I've ever had inside a movie theater, watching The Big Night, like a 500-seat movie theater in Harvard Square. Have you seen the movie? It's all about like the preparation of this immense Italian meal centered around this immense entree called the timpano, this like huge, like almost like a wedding cake packed full of like sausage and vegetables and pasta wrapped with. And so there's the scene where they do the big reveal at the table where they cut a slice and you see the cross section of all this food, and 500 people simultaneously go, "Oh!" and then we all start laughing because we realize that we were all doing the same thing together. And so it's a bummer that will always be like a solo experience with a device like this until they get cheap enough that you can do literally.
Even then, though, you're isolated. And whatever you do not wear it to a wedding. It's a little creepy.
What were you thinking?
Tech worker's wife said she didn't want Apple Vision Pro in the wedding pictures.
I want to experience the wedding in stereo later.
Cambry and Jacob Wright stand together. This is from the San Francisco Chronicle. After taking their wedding photos on Saturday, February 10th, Jacob did not wear the Vision Pro during the ceremony, but did throw it on during the reception. A typical introvert nerd, right? He didn't want to be at the reception. He was He was probably watching a movie.
No, he was okay being at the reception, but he wanted to have like a browser window up too, just when he was bored. I get it.
Just off, honey, just off to the side. Not in my direct field of vision, just off to the side.
Also, I'm capturing 3D memories. That's why I'm doing it. Really, that's what you say. It's like, no, I'm capturing.
About when are we getting a wedding videographer that their specialty is Vision Pro capture. So what they've gotten really good at is holding their head really still and going, just like looking over here, and then slow pans to the other side, and like capturing all that. I think that's the next big thing.
I have to wonder if this marriage is going to last. But Cambry says when her husband of 2 weeks dons the headset, she avoids interacting with him. I try not to look because it's a little creepy. It's a little uncanny. When he's in the Apple Vision Pro, I let him do his thing. She then explained that she tried to keep the wraparound headset away from the wedding photographer. He's like, hey, baby, can we get pictures with the Apple Vision Pro? Cambry said. He probably asked me 2 or 3 times. I was like, no, we have to wait. And then I turn around 1 minute, and he has it on.
It's just... let him out of your sight for 1 minute, and then there they are. Oh,
he obviously didn't get the memo of a happy wife is a happy life. He hasn't gotten that memo yet, and someone should send.
He'll learn.
He'll learn. He'll learn.
Also,
more else.
This is another reason why, like, there are things that you will delegate. There are things you'll share lots of the organization and the things you have to do to get this wedding set up. It's important that you be the one who booked the photographer, so that they realize that no, I'm the one who signed this contract. I'm the one who's going to be writing this check for you. If I say no, then you're going to suddenly your flash unit is going to need a battery recharge, and you will not be able to take that picture.
Just those negatives.
I was a DJ for 400 weddings, and in my wedding, I was like, "This is her day, and you just tell me where to go. Like you just tell me, like I'm just going to stand until you tell me to move somewhere else, and then I'm going to move there, and just solve that. It's not my day."
Let's take a little break. When we come back, picks of the week coming up next on MacBreak Weekly, and please, by all means, pick a fun Vision Pro app. I think the world wants to hear your Vision Pro picks. You can do a regular one, too, if you want, Jason. He's got 2. MacBreak Weekly is brought to you today by Wild Grain. Imagine, if you will, every morning waking up to a freshly baked croissant coming out of the oven for you with your little espresso. You sit on the porch, you enjoy, you will be in heaven. Wild Grain is such a good idea. If you've not seen the videos on Instagram, watch as they make their bread. Now, look, I make bread. I make sourdough bread. I love to bake. But the idea of, one of the things I bake takes more than 24 hours of kneading and rising and waiting and so forth. Wild Grain does all that, but they do it for you ahead of time. They're the first ever Bake from Frozen subscription box for sourdough breads. Oh, the fresh pastas are so good. I'm making carbonara tonight, by the way, if you want to come on over. Artisanal pastries. Spaghetti carbonara with fresh pasta, it's a different experience. It's a world apart. Every item bakes from frozen. This is really important. You keep it in your freezer. Bakes from frozen in 25 minutes or less. You don't have to thaw it. You take it out of the freezer right to the oven. We got a box from Wild Grain, and I love it so much with the pasta, with the bread, with the croissants. And here's a little life tip for you. You don't have to cook. I foolishly cooked all the croissants at once. They're in the freezer. You can take one at a time, bake it one at a time. Then you always have fresh croissants for breakfast. And now you can fully customize your Wild Grain box. My mouth is watering. So you can choose any combination of breads, pastas, and pastries. You can even build a box of, I just want sourdough bread. Oh, get the cheese bread, though. You got to try that. Only pastas or only pastries, whatever you like. For a limited time, $30 off the first box, plus free croissants in every box. Trust me, that's worth it by itself. Go to wildgrain.com/MacBreak. Start your subscription. I'm not kidding. Free croissants in every box. $30 off your first box. Go to wildgrain.com/MacBreak. They're the best croissants I've ever had. You'll feel like you're in Paris, my friends. Wildgrain.com/MacBreak. I wish I had one right now. Andy Anatko Change the subject. Give me a pick of the week.
Okay, pick of the week. I remember a few weeks ago, I recommended Nimona, the Netflix film that they decided to put on Netflix on YouTube for free, the whole movie, because like Oscar voting was happening, and I predicted that when Oscar voting closes, they will take it down from YouTube. Yes, that's exactly what they did. It's not available on YouTube for free anymore. So in the same light, I am going to call your attention to the fact that somebody has Larry David did essentially an episode of
it's Curb Your Enthusiasm,
Curb Your Enthusiasm.
for Apple.
Exactly. Curb Your Enthusiasm.
There he is
where he works at Apple, do an app approval process. And so, yes, he's showing up at the Apple campus. This was shot for the 2014 WWDC when they saw that he did, in fact, do an episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm with all of his Larryisms and all of the point of view of what it's like to work at Apple and what it's like to work in the job of doing app approvals. Apple decided that maybe we're not going to put this into the show anyway. So
they didn't ever show this at WWDC?
I don't believe that they did. I don't remember. It's been pulled. It's not available officially anywhere. A digital copy has been surfacing around. Occasionally it lands on YouTube and then disappears after a week or two when somebody finds out about it. And I want people to know.
Who's that he's arguing with, right? Is that Federighi? Who is that?
No. I think that's just
an actor.
That's just an actor. He looks like he works at Apple. He's saying you can't come in. Without use your card, buddy. Don't follow me in.
Yeah,
it's very Larry.
But yeah, it's a full thing. It's not like a short thing either. It's like a
10
full
minutes,
like almost full half episode. So I would say definitely watch it at the very minimum. I also have a second pick of the week. There's an app called Downy. That is good for downloading YouTube content. A separate issue.
I just happened to open Downy.
Just good.
I also opened Downy.
Because whoever Sam Henry Gold is, he only has 195 subscribers, and it's only a matter of time before this disappears. Yeah. Is that what you're saying?
That's again. That's a totally unrelated thing. I'm a big fan of this app. I use it a lot because sometimes I just don't have time to watch something immediately, and so I mean, also Google. They're going to be hit with a lot of suits from the EU, a lot of fines. I think they appreciate that I'm offering them some unpaid offsite backup of strictly public domain and public interest videos, not anything that might be copyrighted, of course.
Oh, this is wild. I mean, he looks like he works at Apple, to be honest. He totally
Yes, exactly.
He belongs there.
It's not a set. He is actually at Infinite Loop.
Yeah. Wow. That's so great. All right. Get your Downy fired up, and thank you for the pick. And it'll be gone by the time you hear this, I'm sure. But maybe make friends with
Downy ready for the next time.
Yeah, you should have it ready the minute you hear it. Jason Snell, pick of the week.
Oh, I have two now because I'll have my bonus Vision Pro pick in a minute. But first, I want to recommend Whisky, which is free. It's getwhisky.app. It is the combination of Wine, which is the Windows API emulator that allows you to run Windows stuff not in Windows, and Apple's own new-ish gaming toolkit.
Oh, this was the thing that they showed, but it was hard to get working. Is it easier now?
The gaming toolkit is for developers, but anybody can download it.
Right.
And then Wine is the Windows API emulator for a bunch of this stuff that is sort of like shimming it into like Apple's tech. Whisky rolls them together, and you basically run your installer, and it doesn't work all the time, but it works a lot of the time to get Windows games running on Apple Silicon. And I used it there's a baseball game called Diamond Mind, which doesn't have any graphics to speak of, but is like a great like baseball simulator where you can be the manager and stuff. I've been playing that in a virtual machine running, I think, Windows XP for most of that time, right? It's really old. It doesn't really require anything, but it's always required the entire overhead of a Windows VM for me to play on a Mac. It just runs in Whisky. Just runs on my Mac. I don't have to do any of that Windows stuff anymore. So if you've got favorite old Windows games or even recent-ish Windows games, maybe get Whisky and try and see if they will run on your Apple Silicon Mac, because they might.
Wow.
It's free.
Very, very cool.
It is. So I recommend trying that out. It's free. There's no point not to. Why not? And then I want to recommend a $10 app for the Vision Pro. Yay! It is from Sandwich Video, makers of fun commercials everywhere. It's called Television. You can get it at sandwich.vision. Well, that's their URL.
Is it Lonely
it's $10
Sandwich?
in the App Store. It is Lonely Sandwich.
Oh, nice.
It is Sandwich Video. They have created an app for Vision Pro called Television. They said, what if you could put video on a 3D object in 3D space and watch TV on it? We call it television. But it's as ridiculous as it is. It's brilliant. So they have 3D models.
This is Adam Lissagor,
like 20 different 3D models of physical televisions over time. There's even a Macintosh TV in it.
Oh my God.
And then you can play local videos, and they just did an update this week where you can play YouTube videos as well on it. You can set the aspect ratio. They say that several of the streaming services as well as SharePlay are coming. But I've talked to a couple of the people involved in making this, and what they say is actually kind of pleasant when you're working in Vision Pro. If you can play something that's sort of ambient, you just like having it on in the background, and you put in like a TV and you set it somewhere because it's a physical object. It's not a window. It's a 3D model with the video playing on the screen, and you can just set it in the corner and the audio comes from there like it's playing, like it's a real TV. So of course the first thing I did is take an old Star Trek episode and put it on a tube TV with rabbit ears. And that's one of the things they need to add is some video filters to give it to map it on the curve of the display and maybe give a little bit of NTSC fuzz to it if you want to, but it's so fun. And the fact that they've meticulously built these 3D models of all these old TV sets, I love it. It's just adorable. And the fact that now it plays YouTube, you could really put on your favorite YouTube ambient stream or something like that and just have it running off to the side while you're working. And here's the thing I like about it the most. It's silly, but it's fun. But I also like that it feels like actual Vision Pro software, not an iPad app that's been turned into a Vision Pro app, but it's still just sort of a 2D box in front of you. This is software running in space, in a 3D model in space, and you place it somewhere, and that's where the software is. And I think that's really exciting, and I want there to be more stuff like this on Vision Pro in the future, because this feels like what real Vision Pro software should be.
And it's aware of tables and shelves in your actual room. So you're actually putting it on a shelf and on a desk. Oh,
it'll cast a shadow on your table when you're hovering it over the table. And then, if you get up and walk around, you can get up, walk around and see the back of it, see the side of it.
Oh, man.
And it's still playing and the audio pans. It's just, again, is this necessary in life? Of course not. But I love that they did and the models are so. There's also a wall of TVs if you want to have it's like a 3x3 wall of TVs. You can do your Ozymandias and Watchmen thing if you want to.
Man, so cute.
So smart. So television by Sandwich.
Lonely Sandwich. Adam Lissagor was with a host with Marlon Mann for a long time of You Look Nice Today, their podcast.
Yes,
and I've become a fan of his as just a funny guy. But I guess he's a developer.
Yeah, and he makes great commercials.
Guy,
he makes great commercials, and he has a whole studio. And Dan Sturm is doing his VFX now. Who's a guy who does a podcast on The Incomparable and is just a really fun guy. And then they built this thing, and it's just a lot of fun. And I love they're saying there will be more 3D models of TVs in the future as well as more streaming services. So, and this is one of those things that's on our Vision OS wish list, right? Is in the future, right now, Vision OS, if you reboot it, it loses track of where everything is. But in the future, what you really want is if I put the TV on the table in this one room, every time I come into that room, the TV should be on that table. We're not quite there yet, but that's the dream. That would be hilarious.
Can I say this is one of my favorite things in the world? Something absurd that is executed at the highest possible level.
Exactly. They love it. This is not a half-assed joke app. It is ridiculous and perfect at the same time. A great deal of art, art direction and design and care that went into this product that is on another level, as they know in the ad. Like they say, what if you could put a box on a table and play video on it? We call it television. They know, but also it's really good. So it's both those things at once.
Television by Sandwich. You can get it at sandwich.vision. It's in the App Store.
Yep. $10.
fantastic.
$6.
$6.
Oh, is it $6?
Yeah, it's only $6.
Oh, a bargain. I just lowered the price for you. It's $6.
Very nicely done. Thank you.
$4 off.
See, I want
deal.
more Vision Pro content. Keep up the good work.
All right.
You're inching me towards the purchase. I mean, I still have 18 miles.
You're miles away, but inch by inch, we'll get there.
Bit by bit.
Next week, all Vision Pro. Just everybody now, get ready. Next week, it'll be all.
It's all Vision Pro. Actually, I was a little worried about that. In the first few weeks, it was very much a Vision Pro podcast.
Truthfully, next week, the new MacBook Airs will be out, so we'll actually have real
will you bring it up
hardware.
here? Oh, that would be nice.
Sure, yeah.
Mr. Alex Lindsay, pick of the week.
So I have a lot of monitors. I know you'd never think that I'd have a lot of monitors in front of me, but I'm constantly, I feel like they are.
What a shock.
They hang out together and then there's more of them. And so I'll give you a sense of what it looks like in what I'm doing here. So this is, if I back up a little bit.
Oh my God.
So this is a couple, these are asleep right now, but this is for instance, this is my, this is when I draw on things. You can see me drawing on things like that. And this is all still connected to that controls that. And then you have, the monitors that go around. I have the iPads down here, a touchable screen. And then there's a PC over there. And
who needs a Vision Pro? You've got, you don't need a Vision Pro. I know,
the Vision Pro. I'm like, that's so cute.
Alex
so anyway, so this is what this is kind of my cockpit for when I'm live streaming and doing stuff. And you get used to having, this is one of the reasons that I have a hard time with, going to a laptop, is that I'm just used to lots of machines and lots of monitors, all that I'm looking at all the time.
Alex, just one curious question. If you put your coffee at a certain spot in 3 space, does it get warmer just because it's at the right intersection of
No, but he'll never have children again.
I don't need to. We're past that part, so I can do whatever I want. So yeah, so but one of my challenges is I don't really like the monitors to sit on tables because I'm adding them and moving them around. I want to move them over here, and when Michael Krasny comes to my house for the podcast, I have to move a bunch of these. I have to swing these monitors to another position so that I can run the show and he can do his thing. And so there's all this stuff that has to move around. And so I use these arms, and I have to admit that for a long time I used these Amazon arms, and they're really nice. But I was like, okay, I'm buying a lot of these arms. I need to save a little money. And so I got these. They're And this is one version of these. I've got a couple different versions of them. This is the one that I bought most recently, like last week. And because I was like, I need 3 monitors over here instead of 2 monitors. And so I had to figure that out. And what I will say is that the monitors, it's a little bit tweaky. It's got a little bit of more screws than your normally that you put in there. But what I will say is they are super durable, and they're super durable, and they are, very flexible, and you can really, change all the friction that you need in different places. And so and they're really hefty arms that will hold a lot of weight. And the thing that got the reason I've been using these for the last 4 or 5 years, but the reason I'm recommending it is I lost a piece. And for an $89, what I view as coming from mainland China, kind of, I don't even know if they're coming from China, but I think, well, if you lost a piece, it's gone. And it was like you're not gonna, you're not gonna be able to get. And
just
so I was
buy another one, right? Yeah.
I'll just buy a whole nother one to get that piece. And that's actually what I did, is I bought another one. But I was like, you know what? When I bought the new one, just to get that one little piece, I spent, I don't know. I needed it. I used it again. But the point is that I bought another one just so I get that little piece so I could get that working. It's a little C-clamp that hooks onto it. Anyway, so but when in that new box, it said, hey, if you need support, just email here. And I was like, I wonder if they'll actually give me support. So I typed into this thing, and I got back in an email in an hour going, hey, how can we help you? And I said, I lost this little C thing, and can you take a picture of it? And I took a picture of it, and they said, it'll be $15. Just put it in here. We'll ship it out to you. Have it in a weekend. Nice. I have to admit, I was that to put me over. It no longer became like my cheap arms that I use. It became like, I can actually get a hold of somebody if something's not working, or if I need to do something, and that's not something I expected. And they're really good arms. I like them a lot. And but the fact that I actually got customer service was, put it over the top of these are really good. It's a good company to.
I don't know if they're Chinese, but the full name of the business is Shenzhen Shi Menjing Chuang Yuan Jianshin Fajin Yushan Gongxi.
Yeah.
So exactly. I think it might be.
But whatever they're doing, the interface is somewhere in the United States, and they're just highly responsive and speak solid English, and hope that I had a great day. Like they sent it like they sent it,
nice.
But the funny thing is it's like that like when they said it's $15, that there wasn't shipping and handling, there was no like they made something up on the website so that I could pay $15.
Right.
Like it was like literally like they made it up and they just said, here, we got one laying around, we'll just send it to you, but just 15.
Just send us some money, whatever. Just send us some money.
Yeah, it's like
HUANUO triple monitor mount. It's on Amazon for $89.
They make all kinds of different ones. The less expensive ones hold a little less weight than the more expensive ones, and they make 3-arm and 2-arm and lots of different ones there.
Yeah, I got to say, don't overspend on a monitor arm. Like the first one I got was beautiful and $250, and it's like a Porsche where you can touch it with, it's like an Apple product, but you can touch it with 2 fingers and the monitor will move exactly where you want it to go and stay exactly where you leave it. But for these like $50, $60, $70 monitors, they don't move as easily as that. But if you're setting a desk setup where you're going to put it there and almost never move it, it really is just as sturdy. There's no wobble. It supports it well. I'm not afraid of it. And I immediately knew that I'm not spending more than $40 per display on a monitor arm ever again.
Yeah, there are. I mean, as you said, there's Creature Comforts. There's ones. I mean, $250 is a start, but there are ones that I've had that are like $1,000 for 2 monitors or whatever. And those ones, as you said, you move with an end of your finger with no effort, and things just it just feels like the monitor is floating. Monitors in Motion is the company that made those, and they just feel like they're floating in space, and they're great. I just can't afford to buy 6 of those,
right?
And so I and for $100, I'm able to put a little more elbow grease into it.
I got a pick from our club Twit. Now I'm an Emacs guy, and I don't really need Vision Pro, but Vision Mad, who I suspect is a Vision Pro fan, in our club Twit said he's been coding in Zig in his Vision Pro, and I said, oh, really? What editor are you using? He says, I use Zed on my desktop, and then, of course, use the Mac to it. And I've been aware of this. This is from the folks who did Atom. It's there. Atom was originally on GitHub. It was ended. It's end of life. They went on to rewrite this in Rust. It's the same folks who give you Tree Sitter. It's a high-performance multiplayer code editor, open source, and available for Mac OS natively, and he's using it for his Zig, but because it supports Tree Sitter, it probably supports a great many languages except mine. And because it's written in Rust, it's probably rock solid. It certainly looks like it's very fast, and it has a lot of very nice features. Zed, and it's free, zed.dev. And we thank Vision Mad in our club for the recommendation. That's one of the great things about the club is there's really smart, interesting, unusual people in there, people you want to hang out with. That's not the reason to join the club. The reason to join the club is to keep us going. $7 a month is all we need. If every listener sent us $7 a month, we wouldn't need advertising. We could grow. We could expand. We could do more shows, hire people back, hire new people. But it all comes down to you. And we do want to give you some benefits. So you do get access to the Club Twit Discord, which is a wonderful hang with people like Vision Mad and all of our family in there, talking about all the things geeks love to talk about. We also get content that is not broadcast anywhere else, like you saw that escape room if you're watching the video, or escape box, I guess it was. We did that. It was a lot of fun. We also have video versions of all the shows that may only have audio versions in public, like Hands On Macintosh and iOS Today. So you get some benefit. Oh, I forgot the biggest benefit, ad-free, tracker-free versions of everything we do. $7 a month seems like a pretty good deal for that. Twit.tv/clubtwit. But the main benefit is the warm and fuzzy feeling knowing that you're supporting the work we do here. I think I might have to take a break because I'm starting to cough. But we do thank you guys for all our Club Twit members for your support, and all of our hosts for the good job they do. Jason Snell will be hosting the show next week and the week after. Lisa and I are going on vacation. We're going down to Cabo for a couple of weeks.
Something.
Yeah. Can't wait.
I mean, I'd rather be in Cabo, honestly, but I will host the show and not mess it up. I'll try not to crash the car.
We love having you on. You're the best guy to do this, obviously.
Oh, man, I thought you were going to say we love having you in Cabo, but no, it's just...
You can join us.
It's fine.
You could do the show from there.
It's fine. Oh, no, I'm signed up to do the show now. I'll just have to do the show. It'll be good. We're going to have some good guests. Dan Morin next week.
That'll be fun, yeah.
That'll be fun.
6colors.com. Also, somebody from Mac Stories, right?
Yeah, John Voorhees in 2 weeks, who is a really great, if you don't know who he is, you will learn and you will love John Voorhees, who works with Federico Vitici on Mac Stories. So
that's one of the reasons
Big Apple John.
We like having you do the show, because you bring in interesting people. Of course, Andy will be here, Andy Anatko. When are you going to be on GBH next?
I was just on last week. Go to gbhnews.org to watch that. So I'm going to be off for the next week or two, but go to Anatko on pretty much any social network, and you'll find my synaptic misfirings right there.
And maybe we'll see you in Cabo then.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I thought it was going to be more of a surprise when I pop up from your closet, but oh well.
Oh, God. And, of course, Alex Lindsay. And I want to thank Alex. His pick last week, these jam bars to support music in Marin. I think we like them. In fact, I'm going to have to put some aside for Jason for next week, because I
warned you, they're addictive.
They're going to be gone. Yeah, they're very good. Alex does office hours every morning at officehours.global. What you up to over there?
Oh, we're talking about tomorrow we're going to talk about just audio in the physical world, and then we're also talking about multicasting, sending out to streaming to multiple locations. So a lot of fun stuff. Also, we had Renee Ritchie on Gray Matter.
Fun.
So Renee Ritchie was on. He was great, of course. So Renee, that just popped out today. So if you go to graymatter.show with an E, you can see Renee's, or you can just go to Apple Podcasts or Spotify. But he had a great interview with Michael Krasny.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's great.
Yeah.
Still creator liaison at YouTube, but
he still is. His ability to encapsulate an enormous amount of information into a short period of time is always amazes me when he's on. You ask him a question, he just packages this whole thing up. And even when Michael Krasny walked away, he goes, his ability to just package up like a thing of ideas and set them down is quite a thing.
He's really well spoken. I agree. And we miss him on the show, but I'm glad we can see him on Gray Matter. Gray Matter with an E.show. Thank you. And did I mention Jason's at 6colors.com/Jason for all of his multifarious efforts. Yeah. We do MacBreak Weekly every Tuesday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 1900 UTC. Actually, we're going to, this Sunday, right? The time change. We spring forward. So the math will change. Not for people in the U.S., but our UTC, because we shift, but UTC doesn't. So wait a minute, let me think this out. We're going to set our clocks forward, which means UTC will be -7. So it'll be 1800 UTC. Okay, you got that? I hope you did. I say that only because you can watch us do it live on YouTube, youtube.com/twit. But of course, you can watch or listen anytime you want by downloading a show, whether it's from twit.tv/mbw, our website, that's where the show notes live, or watching the YouTube channel. There's a MacBreak Weekly YouTube channel, believe it or not. Subscribe there and you'll get it automatically. You can, of course, subscribe in your favorite podcast player, download it, audio or video or both, and listen every week to MacBreak Weekly. Thank you so much for being here. Thanks to our club members. Thanks to our hosts, John Slanina, our studio manager, Burke McQuinn, the guy who keeps things working, and our producer, whatever his name is, John Ashley, boy producer, John Ashley. I'm sorry, I'm just teasing you. But that's because you ate all my jam bars, damn it. Oh, he's walking out. You can't leave. Now it's time for you, particularly John Ashley, to get back to work, because break time is over. We'll see you next week. Actually, I'll see you in 3 weeks.